Hello, Army. If you see the chapter, the name of it is Ara Ara. Oh, so let me show you guys what it is. Let me try to show you. Let me try that again to show you what it is. It's another Hero Academia one. I thought I put it in the name. Yeah, it's only 14 chapters though. Like you think I just went to 14. If there's more in that title, I'm sorry, but there's only 14 chapters, and I wish there was more though. But let's listen to it. It's like about 3 hours almost.
The second was that he was, admittedly.
Okay, let me try that again. There.
ch1, there were many reasons why being Izuku Midoriya was suffering. The first was that he just quite frankly didn't have a quirk. The odds of that were incredibly low, especially for his generation. On top of that, the boy had something of a hero complex in that the one thing he wanted in the world was to be a hero, to the point it was probably going to kill him. The second was that he was, admittedly, rather pathetic. Sure, that was pretty common for a kid, but there was no doubt that if there was a loud noise, he was the first to jump. Even if Kakin was just as afraid of scary movies as he was, it didn't matter because Izuku would run first. The third was that he had a crush on someone that was so far out of his league he'd never stand a chance to get anywhere near them. This one was doubly bad because the girl in question was Mo Bakugo, Kakin's older sister. In many ways, Mo was like Kakin in that she was loud, proud, driven, and had an amazing quirk, all things that Izuku did not, but she also had this certain zest to her, a certain way of encouraging people to be better. The way that she called him Deku was a lot different from how Kakin did. Mo had always been nice to him, but the time he realized he had a crush on her was when he was 10. Deku, Kakin growled, hands sparking as the blonde-haired boy advanced towards him, an angry glow in his eyes. How many times do I have to tell you? I don't want a useless Deku like you following me around. Yeah, one of their other friends stepped forward and pushed Izuku in the shoulder. Katsuki said, "Get lost." In all honesty, Izuku didn't really know what was going on. He was just here to play with Kakin like they always did and know all of a sudden he was about to be punched. What? Why? I said. A hand descended down onto Kakin's head and squeezed tightly. Behind Kakin stood Mo, her flaming green hair pulled into a pair of pigtails that betrayed her devious glare. "What do you think you're doing to Deku?" "Kakin?" She mocked Kakin and pulled him up off the ground by his head. Being 13 and also desiring to be a hero, Mo was more than capable of handling Kakin with a scary amount of ease. Mo looked at Izuku and smiled. "Deku, if he ever bothers you again, just call on me and I'll kick him back into shape." "Let me go, Mo." Kakin struggled, trying to kick at his sister, the miniature explosions from Kakin's hands having no effect on Mo at all. "He's just a quirkless Deku." "Yeah, and I'm telling you to knock it off, shrimp, so behave." It was a strange moment. On the one hand, he was fairly certain that he wasn't friends with Kakin anymore, but on the other hand, he realized that he liked girls and that he really, really liked Mo, something that would only get worse as they both grew up. Izuku let out a sigh. Today had been exhausting. Not only did he almost get his ass kicked by Kakin for saying he wanted to go to UA too and bringing up that Mo got into UA before Kakin had, but then he almost got murdered by a slime villain saved by All Might, learned that All Might was hurt, which was worrying, then almost died from trying to save Kakin from that same slime villain that somehow got away from All Might. And to top it all off, he even got yelled at by some pro-heroes, the police, and when he got home, probably by his mother. Well, at least being grounded meant he'd have plenty of time to choose a new dream or career path to go after. Maybe something like teaching, or like, fuck it, cooking. He could make toast. He was great at toast. Yo, Decatilda. That loud, boisterous voice was music to his ears. There was an instant effect on his entire body, sweaty palms, nervous chattering, a pounding heart, and to top it all off, a smile. Izuku looked behind him to see Mo standing there looking halfway like a thug with how her UA uniform was kept. Her flaming green hair was tied in a ponytail, the top button of her shirt was undone, and her jacket was wide open, and she carried her book bag behind her shoulder as casual as can be. She had a wide smile that showed off her wicked sharp teeth. "Great job today." "Oh, thank you." He bowed, feeling his face flush. Why was she praising him? Did she hear about what happened today? Oh God, what if she yelled? "Yeah, I managed to catch the tail end of it on the news." "You were great," and Mo growled and reached around the corner, her face taking on the usual sneer she had whenever her little brother was involved. "Would you get out here?" "I'm not going to thank him." He shouldn't have. Mo grabbed Kakin's head and forced him into a bowing position. "Let go of me, you bitch." "Don't call me a bitch, shrimp. I'm taller than you." "Not from down there, you aren't." "Now thank Deku, then I'll let you go be angry until dinner." In many ways, watching the Bakugo siblings fight was like watching pro wrestling. It made Izuku wonder if he ever got a sibling. Would he argue, "It's okay"? Nah, he does. This dumbass probably thought that he could be the hero and tried to fight that slime and ended up getting stuck. Mo looked up from holding Kakin down and glared at Izuku for a second. "So the least he could do is thank your dumbass for risking your life to save his dumbass. Even if All Might did end up saving both of you." Kakin stopped flailing for a moment. "Fine fucking thank you for being a dumbass, Deku. I didn't ask for your fucking help." "Ooh, you're welcome." Was that even a thank you? Kakin flailed and moved away from Mo, stomping back down the street with a very red face. "Just don't fucking do it again." "I don't need your fucking help." Mo sighed and watched her brother walk off. Seriously need to work on his attitude. Izuku watched as Mo moved closer to him. Now that she was 16 years old, she had gotten more beautiful than he remembered, and curvier. Much more curvier. Was it wrong that he noticed those things? How could he not? Still, Mo was easily the hottest woman he'd ever met. She was just an inch or two taller than him, but her proud posture made that stand out all the more. She grabbed him by the head and ruffled his hair. "Seriously, Deku, thank you for saving Kakin. I know that he's an ass, but I'm just glad someone at least tried." She leaned closer, face inches away from his. Then he felt something soft and wet on his cheek. It was similar to when he went to go see relatives, but this was something else entirely, a kiss on the cheek from Mo. He was never going to wash the cheek again. He felt her breath on his ear, tickling his spine and making his entire body shudder. "Seriously, I have no doubt that you could have been a great hero, Izuku." She leaned back and smiled down at him. "Seriously, try for UA and go for their management program. I'll even hire you once I'm out on my own. It'll be fun, right? Oh, and you can even be in charge of Kakin's pay." Izuku set through his blush. It was only the years of knowing Mo that allowed him to even make a syllable at this point. "He'd work with you?" Probably not willingly. Mo ruffled his hair one last time and gave him a one-armed hug that had his elbow pressed into her chest. "Well, I'll see you around. I need to get going. I have homework and stuff to do." "Oh, I'll tell Mom you saved my dumbass brother from turning into a bad hentai and invite you over for dinner. And seriously, get into UA. I know you can. See ya." Bye. He was tempted to follow Mo home, but for some reason he couldn't really move his legs. They always went to Jello after she left. Doubly so this time. Mo believed that he could have been a hero, that he could get into UA. Was hero management a good job? Why didn't he think about applying to the non-hero courses at UA before? Oh, right, because he wanted to be a hero. "For I am here." All Might came bursting around the corner. X. Of all the people, Mo pressed her back against the corner of the stone wall, smiling as she heard All Might recognize Izuku for his heroics. No doubt Deku was having something close to an orgasm just from being near the #1 pro hero. She came back to tease him a bit more, but now she was staying with the express purpose of eavesdropping. There's something that's said about top heroes when they were still students. Most of their stories are linked by one line: "My body moved on its own before I could think." All Might's voice was raspy. If she hadn't seen him switch into that skinny form moments ago, she wouldn't have believed the change in the slightest. "And you did the same thing." Of course Izuku did. He always had more of a heroic and kind heart than Katsuki did. Hell, Izuku was more heroic than at least half of her class. That was why she was going to hire him when he graduated, so he couldn't get himself killed. Probably. Okay, it was a rocky plan. You can become a hero, All Might shouted. You're the one who's worthy to inherit my strength. The flying fuck nugget. What was All Might talking about? It's a simple matter of whether or not you'll try your damnedest to absorb my power. All Might stopped shouting for once, and she heard bits of what followed. Quirk super strength, well-timed zingers, interviews symbol of peace, natural-born hero. Quirk passed from one to the next. Its power to transfer power from one person to the next. And the name of that vaunted ability to which I've been entrusted is none other than One for All. More mumbling, this time from Izuku. He was always mumbling about something. I've been searching for a successor for ages, and now that I've finally come across someone I wouldn't mind giving it to. All Might went on. You were more heroic than any of those other heroes there. So what do you say? Will you become my successor? Mo clutched her bag. She didn't want to run out there and ruin things for them, but she so totally did. Would it be rude? Would she fuck this up for Izuku? Whatever, he needed to say yes. Come on, Izuku. It's his dream. Take it. Grab it with both hands and don't let go. She wanted to see what kind of hero Izuku could become. Yes, please. Izuku's firm, proud voice struck like thunder, somehow carrying more weight than even All Might had. All Might let out a laugh. Now there's a quick reply. Just as I expected, you rascal. Now here, meet me at Dagobah Municipal Beach Saturday at 6 a.m. Don't be late. Why? To start your physical training after all. Mo felt her smile twist. There was no way she was going to miss out on this. She wasn't going to let Izuku ever think about quitting. She'd gotten bored of her morning jog run anyways.
Oh yeah, I did forget to mention all my some comics may go 18 plus or less, but they're definitely gonna have more than language. There's gonna be some. Remember, these things mostly are gonna be. It's not gonna be fully PG-13. It might be more than that. Some comics. So if that happens for comics, you guys, because I'm sorry about that earlier, but you guys are gonna have to deal with that. So let's continue.
Chapter 2. Despite April being right in the middle of spring, it was still really freaking cold before the sun rose. Part of him was grateful for how the cold air felt on his burning muscles. Ever since All Might came bursting into his life, he hadn't had a day where his muscles weren't sore and weren't on fire from actually being used for once. The cold air that filled his lungs stung just as much as it soothed. But really, it was the fact that he was up before the sun was that really seemed to hit the hardest. Despite getting 8-ish hours of sleep, he was still tired just by looking at his alarm clock and seeing the big old 5:0 staring back at him. It gave him enough time to do his jog, then get home to eat and shower before school. Then after school, he would meet up with All Might to clean the beach. His muscles groaned and he was reminded of the soft, safe spot in bed. He wanted to quit. He wanted to go back to not waking up at 5 in the morning. But he wanted to be a hero much, much more. He wasn't going to quit. He was going to prove to All Might that he had to do what exactly did All Might say he needed to have for this. Moxie, no, All Might wasn't that old. Was he? It didn't matter. Whatever All Might wanted him to have, he was going to have it. Mo stood underneath the street light, bathing in its light even as the stars began to fade with the rising sun. Her flaming green and yellow hair was pulled into a ponytail with embers of flame flying upwards with her every movement. She was wearing tight red and black camo leggings, short running shorts that didn't even go halfway down her thigh, and a white shirt that proudly proclaimed to the world, thick thighs save lives. She was way too hot this early in the morning. Just looking at her made his heart beat even more, and it turned out he did have enough blood for that certain area of his body. His breath felt hot, and he couldn't quite focus on anything but Mo and how amazing she looked in her casual workout clothing. Not that she didn't look good in everything, just this was a new look he wanted to memorize, especially since she was currently stretching her leg by pulling it behind her back. Her fiery orange eyes flashed to him, and her smile grew large enough to show off those wicked sharp canines of hers. She could put a wolf to shame with those. Her leg hit the ground, and she walked towards him. Dekub, you're up early. Her every breath let out a puff of hot air. Are you jogging too? She stood in front of him, back of her hands on her hips, chest out, her usual prideful stance already refreshing his stamina. She patted him. Yeah, he nodded, looking at her. You kinda started a bit ago. That's good. You're finally starting to take things seriously. Mo slapped his shoulder again and again. And how was she so peppy this early in the morning? She seemed like the kind of person that would murder her alarm clock if it made a peep before sunrise. Do you do this every day? Yeah, well, except the weekend. He spoke word by word, his hot and heavy breath forcing him to talk slowly. It really felt like his lungs were completely on fire at this point, along with his cheeks. Okay, his whole body. I work out then. That's great. I guess I gave you some real motivation, huh? She moved to his side and gave him a sideways hug that his elbow pressing up against her chest. Soft, very soft, even through the fabric. And it looks like I got myself a jogging buddy. Izuku looked at her wide-eyed. A what? Someone you jog with. I've been jogging every morning before I go to you. I guess we just missed each other. But now we can meet up here and help encourage each other. Come on. She smiled so easily. What do you say, Deku? Think you can keep up with me? Not in a million years. I can try. He swallowed, the air grating against his throat. She clapped his back again. Great, now come on, I can show you some stretches real quick, then we can start the jog. She guided him to the street light and flung both of her arms behind her back, thrusting out her chest. It sounds like you're having a bit of trouble breathing, so we need to stretch your diaphragm. There was no way that Mo didn't know that she was all but sticking her chest out at him. Wait, she did that a lot anyways. There was just something about the way she walked that it had high shoulders, back, chest out most of the time. She had such an amazing posture, especially compared to Kakin that stalked everywhere like a wolf on the prowl. Meanwhile, Izuku was fairly certain that if he kept up his posture, his shoulders might fuse into a shield for him to hide in. Like this. Izuku mimicked what Mo was doing and tried not to be distracted by how busty she had gotten. It happened over winter just over a year ago that Mo went from the tall, skinny girl to a full-figured woman, and he needed to not be staring at her chest. Yeah, Mo bounced. Just like that, now breathe in deeply. For about 5 minutes, Mo led him through her usual stretches, and then they were off. His muscles were screaming at him as he stubbornly tried to keep pace with Mo. She made jogging look so easy, like it was nothing more than fast walking, and she looked great doing it too, especially her butt, which he might have been staring at the entire duration of their jog. It was a good motivator. Not only was Mo moving faster than he was before, but they were already going for long as well. His feet hurt. Actually, his whole body hurt. But he was going to keep up with Mo. He needed to. And once he completed his training with All Might, he'd even be able to keep up with her as a hero. So Deku, Mo called, flashing him a grin that tore his eyes upwards. What would your hero name be? Like, just hypothetically, you had to think of that, right? How could she jog and talk at the same time? He could barely jog and breathe, especially going at this pace. He was going to fall asleep in class, wasn't he? I don't know, he said honestly. Well, he did all who, how about really our nickname for most spot? You know, Katsuki says that to insult you. I just kind of think it's cute. I know, but as long as it's your Deku and not Kakin's Deku, I think I'd like it to be my hero name. He managed to breathe out, nearly tripping over nothing as they made a corner. My Deku hut. Mo came to a slow stop and started to stretch and face him. Wait, did he know this street? Oh, it was his street. How did they end up here? Well, that sounds good. I like it. Her smile made him blush all the more. My Deku, ah. I mean, I'm she clapped. Oh, ooh. He took a deep breath and let the early morning sun bake some of the cold off of him. Oh, but what's your hero name? Oh, that's easy. It's burnin', 'cause I'm smoking hot and on fire. Double whammy and all that. She pulled out her wallet and flashed him a card. It was her hero license. It had her hero name on it, as well as a picture of Mo in her hero costume. She looked mildly insane in it, but that was just normal for her. Probably. Did he have a crush on an insane woman? Oh, but hey, since we're jogging buddies now, let me see your phone. It's about time we got each other's numbers right. And not just any girl's number. But Mo, he almost X. Mo, a blur of blue hair, crashed into her with the kind of force that only a very excited Neji or Hato could muster this early in the morning. The short blue-haired girl held onto her tight, resting her chin on Mo's chest and looking up at her with star-filled eyes. Hi, Mo rolled her eyes and patted Nedjire on the head. Hi, Nedjire, where's you? Seriously, where was this girl's keeper? An unsupervised Nedjire was a danger to society. Oh, she's out sick today. Nedjire's hands flopped helplessly on Mo's upper arms. I need to get her homework. Thanks for reminding me. How did this girl get better grades than most of their class? Nedjire was ranked third while Mo was ranked fourth. Well, you should probably do it after class, right? I don't think they'll let you back through the gates if you leave now, or at least not without getting in trouble. Mo smiled. The last time Nedjar had gotten locked out, she tried to fly over, only to get blasted by a net gun and was then stuck in the tree for a few hours. That was a good day. Hey, 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 you're thinking something mean, aren't you? Nedjar finally let go and pressed her finger into Mo's cheek. Mo slapped the finger away and looked up at the UA building. Next year, Izuku would be going here along with her little brother. Probably he might need a shock collar. I'm always thinking something mean, Nedjire. Nedjire stood straight behind her book bag behind her back. I don't think that's true. You're a nice person, Mo, but hey, you seem happier all of a sudden. Did something good happen? Well, she just hit her first morning jog with Izuku, got his number, and found out that his hero name was going to be her version of Deku. He was her Deku. She was going to tease him a lot. Oh, Nejar was still looking at her. Oh, well, it's nothing really. Just discovered some interesting kids that are going to be coming to UA next year. They'll have to get through the big giant robots first, though. Nejar hummed and partially skipped as they made their way to class. Still, if Mo thinks they're interesting, then I can't wait to meet all of our cute underclassmen. Mo just rolled her eyes. Nejar had no idea just how interesting Izuku was going to be with All Might's strength. She just needed to do her part to keep her deck motivated. Now, where was Dagaba Beach again? Chapter 3. Izuku was totally staring at her ass. But the question was he an ass man, a boob man, a stomach man, a leg man, or a thigh man? Sure, all men were a mix of flavors. Some liked all parts equally, others were heavily stacked towards one area, and others were all over the place. Her mother claimed that her father was very much into legs, and one of the first things her brother ever looked up online was Bakinu, also known as explosive breasts, which was pretty much just taking his favorite word and adding boobs to the end of it. But so far, Deku had shown a keen interest in just about everything, which was good because Mo had just about everything. But she still wanted to know the best way to tease him. Why? Because it was fun to make Izuku blush. Mo stopped enjoying the feeling of the early summer morning. The sun was still low in the sky, and the chill of night was mingling with the warmth of day that made jogging feel so much better than normal. For the past few months, Izuku had been keeping up with her, and it felt great to have a jogging partner, but now it was time to kick things up a notch. All right, Deku. She turned to him, grabbing onto the bottom of her mega milk tank top and fanning her stomach. Izuku's eyes flashed to her exposed stomach for just a moment. His face was red from running, and his breath was heavy. He looked spent, but maybe she could get him to go that extra bit further, to really go beyond. Are you ready to go plus ultra? Izuku smiled at her and came to a slow stop, his arms going slack, and he took long, heavy breaths. He gathered himself by placing both hands on his hips and then looking at her, then towards the long set of stairs to his right. He gave a weak smile and looked at his legs. We're going to run up that, aren't we? Coley, now come on. She took a deep breath, stretched her arms, and started up the wide section of the stairs. She stopped at one of the dozen or so flat spots on the way to the top and waved. Come on, Deck. She smiled at him, waiting for him to start up the stairs. The old Izuku, the one from a few months ago, wouldn't even be here. He would have given up on the second or third day. Maybe it was because of that big fat carrot All Might was dangling in front of him. Or maybe it was because someone was actually encouraging him for once. Either way, it was good to see him pushing himself. This Izuku took a breath and started up the stairs after her. Mo smiled, one hand on her hip as she watched him. She really wanted to see what kind of man this Izuku would turn into, and what kind of hero he could be with a quirk like All Might's. He helped her when she was struggling to understand her quirk, so it was the least she could do. Besides, she might even be able to make him into a worthwhile boyfriend. Izuku stopped on the flight above her and promptly hurled a bile into one of the planters. Or not. Deku, that stuff is supposed to stay inside of you. You all right? X. Every part of his body hurt. It had been since winter, got a bit better during the spring, and sucked during the summer, and now that fall was here, everything hurt even more. Not only was All Might's training ramping up slowly and steadily so that he was constantly pushing his own limits, but the extra workout with Mo in the morning was really ramping up. And as of yesterday, All Might had found out about his extra training and had even modified his plan to make him even stronger, which was, in theory, good, but at this point lifting a pencil was a challenge. He was fairly certain he'd slept more in class than any other student at this point. So while All Might was using numbers, logic, and science to make his work out, Mo was just going at it with borderline gleeful sadism that had both of them sweating and tired after each morning. Was it possible to get work out friend-zoned? Not that he really stood a chance with Mo as anything more than a friend. She was just kind of amazing on a whole other level. He saw her footage from the sports festival, and she was amazing the way she used her quirk to avoid Deku. This time his nickname came pouring out like a waterfall of angry Pomeranians all fighting over one slightly too big tennis ball. It was Kakin again. It really was only him that called Izuku Deku during school hours. Well, Mo did, but that was different. Why couldn't Kakin be like his sister? Wait, if Kakin was a female, would that make her a tsundere? Was Kakin a tsundere? Izuku poked at his lunch. It was filled with stuff that tasted tasteless, but it was also filled with vitamins and other stuff. Hey, Kakin. Izuku partially looked over to his former friend, former bully, current pain in the neck, and blinked slowly at him. Can you say dumbass for me? Dumbass. Kakin crossed his arms and glared down at Izuku while one foot was planted firmly onto the side of his desk. Yep, Kakin was a tsundere. He should ask Mo what she thought. Stay the fuck away from my sister. Hut. Izuku looked. At the moment he was just too exhausted. Why? Because I fucking said so, nerd. Kakin took his foot off Izuku's. Izuku shrugged and pulled out his phone. Mo had introduced him to a very cool texting app called Hero IM. It allowed people to register with the hero name and chat with others. There were even chat rooms, channels, and it was just pretty neat. It was how he primarily talked to Mo when he wasn't chasing after her and trying not to die. Deku is Kakin at tsundere. Burnin, 100,000% plus. Oh, why? Did he finally come out of the closet? Deku, no, he just told me to stay away from you. Burn in or lie? Before Izuku could even respond to the text, the whole class heard Kakin's phone vibrate like a demon was trying to get out. Kakin put his lunch down and grabbed his phone, stared at the number a second, then glared at Izuku. How it was Mo. Kakin put the phone to his ear. Sup, sis? Mind your own damn business, twerp, or I'll shove my foot so far up your ass that you'll. Kakin hung up and placed his phone face down on his desk like he was hiding from the screen. It was at times like this that Izuku was reminded that when Mo wanted, she could be just as loud, violent, and vulgar as her brother. Thankfully, she was only really like that to Kakin. Maybe he really didn't know how she acted around her friends. X. Honestly, he had been on autopilot ever since he woke up that morning. Some part of him knew that the entrance exams were today, but it was like his body was just burning with the desire to see everything through. His stomach was in knots over what would happen if he failed at the beach, over what would happen if he failed the entrance exam, or what would happen if All Might's quirk just didn't like him. There was so much that could go wrong, but he needed to keep going, even as he could feel every single muscle of his body screaming at him to calm the fuck down, but he couldn't. He wanted to prove to All Might that he was the right person. He wanted to see Mo's face when he showed up in the hero course with his own quirk, ready to try and be a hero, which was at least half the reason why once he gathered the last of the scrap off the beach, he climbed on top and fucking mostly because he had no idea how he got that fucking truck on top of that pile. Oh, and now he was falling. Right, death by falling sounds about right. It wasn't like he could even run 10 feet with his current state. And the entrance exam was in like 5 hours. Yet, oh well, maybe they'd name the beach after the kid that died cleaning it up. You've earned a rest. All Might's right. All Might was smiling wider than usual and was even trembling slightly. All Might. Oh good, he didn't fall to his death. Probably, he kind of figured that All Might would be in his version of heaven. I did it. And you did an amazing job. Not so All Might here, once again, it was smaller than his thumb. How did he use it in his muscular form? Izuku leaned forward, not really by choice, and looked at the screen. There was a photo of him crying. It was pretty normal. What's this? This was you 10 months ago. And now look at you. You went from skin and bones to fit as a fiddle. You still have a long way to go, but now we have the foundation all set. You become a fine vessel. Oh, great. Now he was crying again. But he did it, with help, with a lot of help. I feel like I've cheated. You went so far for me, and my friends, they all might slap the tears right out of him. Quit being such a, right? How is, you know what they say, right? There's a difference between something you were born without a pure luck. All Might pulled out one of the hairs from his giant V. It was long, thick. What was with the hair? And something you won after busting your ass for it. So puff out your, oh wait, not now. All Might let out. Technically, this really isn't what I had in mind. Izuku swallowed the hair and managed to keep it down despite the sour aftertaste that washed over him. He wanted to gag, he wanted to vomit, but this was the last hurdle for him. He needed to keep it down. Yo, Deku, nice muscles. Why was he hearing burning? Oh look, his heart rate could go up even higher. Seriously, prolonged exposure to his crush did not stop him from freaking out at the sound of her voice. If anything, it made things worse. So, Izuku turned to see Mo standing there dressed in a warm winter coat, her usual camo leggings visible from the waist down. Her hair was tied into a ponytail, but she didn't look like she had even started her morning jog. What happens if someone gives him a blowjob? Do they get the quirk? Izuku looked at Mo. Wait, he was already doing that. Okay, this time he was looking at her and not checking her out. Wait, she looked pretty, damn it, he was doing that again. He then looked towards All Might, who was doing the exact same thing. Hopefully not the checking out part. Still, she did have a good point, but more importantly, what the hell was she doing here? Mo, what are you doing here? She looked genuinely surprised by the question. Oh, right. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small box. I wanted to congratulate you for getting All Might's quirk. You worked super hard for it, right? Young Midoriya. All Might grabbed into Izuku's shoulders and shook him slightly, panic washing over the pro hero's face as he shrunk down. You didn't tell her, did you? Namo put the box in Izuku's hand and looked up at All Might. You're just like really loud and like to shout about super secret things in public places. She kind of had a point. Young lady. All Might stood sharply once again, taking on his towering form. Mo just stared up at him like she wasn't sassing the #1 pro hero. You should know that eavesdropping is. Yeah, you can scold me later, #1, but don't you think we should be getting Izuku home first so he can get ready for the entrance exams? She had a very good point. God, you're right. Come now, young Midoriya. We can't have you be late or all this would be for naught. All Might grabbed him by the waist. And you, young lady, you're coming with me. Fine, I got some questions for you two. Izuku managed to open Mo's gift to him. It was a hero tag with a chain necklace. The tag was clear, made of a clear hard plastic with words seemingly floating there. It read, The Effort Hero Deku, Sidekick of Burnin', Chapter 4. You know we have the day off for the entrance exams, right? Mo asked, trying to look around All Might's massive form as they walked through the hallway of UA. Why was he even here? Was he going to bribe Izuku's way in? 'Cause she was so down for that. If we're going to be hacking the school, think we can change my grades too. I'm not doing the best in English. We're not here for that. All Might looked at her, his face dark and devoid of his usual smile. It was almost scary. He sighed and beckoned her into the elevator. After making sure that Izuku had gotten home, hopefully with enough time to shower, All Might had brought her directly to UA. It was kind of messed up that All Might's advice for using the quirk was just clenching his butt cheeks. Didn't even check to see if Izuku actually had it. This was starting to feel like Izuku was some kind of underdog protagonist. Hopefully he could beat one or two of those robots today. She had no doubt he'd be able to pass the written exam. He'd always been a smart cookie, though now he was a smart buff cookie. Mo scratched the back of her head, her flaming hair tickling her hand ever so slightly. Good thing she didn't need a comb for her hair. The plastic once melted. So then why are we here? Am I in trouble? Legally. No, All Might huffed. He was acting like a 7-foot-tall baby. It wasn't her fault he kept shouting secrets in public places. Seriously, he needed to learn to turn the volume down. All Might and her little brother would probably get along, at least until Katsuki swore. Personally, yes, eavesdropping is rude. I said I was sorry, but it's not like I'm going to be telling anyone. The elevator stopped and they walked out, All Might making sure she was following him with a look over his shoulder. It's Deku's secret too now. All Might's shoulders slumped for just a moment. I see you. Good question. One she didn't have then. At least, saying he was like her little brother just left a bad taste in her mouth, and was probably an insult to both Izuku and her actual little brother. But at the same time, saying he was just a friend was just not right either. But it wasn't like All Might wanted to listen to her teenage drama bullshit. He's just my friend. I've been, hopefully, even if, but didn't you hear? He's going to be my sidekick once I have my own agency. How? All Might gave a great laugh and stopped in front of the principal's office. I admire your moxie, young Bakugo, but still, we're going to need to have a talk in here. He opened the door and she walked in. She'd only gotten to go into Nezu's office a few times, most of the time to congratulate her, and one time because she accidentally set off the sprinkler system. The office was normal, which was strange because the person currently sitting at the desk in a booster seat, she greeted him casually. No, she knows. All Might groaned and moved over to take a seat. That you're a teacher. Nezu looked between the two of them. Well, now she did. You're going to be a teacher here. Right. All Might stretched and relaxed into his seat. He reverted to that skinny form she'd seen him in a few times. I'll be teaching next year. Then she knows that you're injured. Nezu asked, shrugging. Could you not be so vague? I know that he gave his quirk to Deku this morning, and I've known that he can give his quirk to people since like April. Mo rolled her eyes and made for the seat opposite of All Might. Oh, I see. Nezu clapped his paws, sounding delighted by the prospect. He jumped and sat at the end of his desk, his little shoes tapping the wood slightly. Who's Deku? And Mo, would you mind serving the tea? She was just about to sit down. But still, one of the rules of the school is that if Nezu offers tea, it was best to just accept it. Sure thing. Deku is what she calls Izuku, the boy I told you about. All Might lean forward in his seat, fingers interlocking in front of his face and letting out a sigh. Nezu nodded. I see, so why bring her here? I don't know what to do with her. All Might said, flexing his fingers. It would. Nothing. Nezu clapped his hands. You should do nothing. Pardon? All Might asked. Mo returned with 3 cups of tea, placing one in front of All Might and one just barely small enough for Nezu to hold next to the principal before she took the empty seat. What do you mean, do with me? You're not going to make me disappear, are you? If there was anyone that could do it, it would be All Might. And what was that about an injury earlier? Still, the fact that All Might's quirk was transferable felt like it was just the tip of the iceberg. Not me. No, All Might took the tea. Thank you. It's just that no one else was supposed to know about One for All, and the people that know about it tend to be put in danger, so even if I can trust you, it's a matter of... She wanted to yell at All Might for several reasons. 1, giving Deku a quirk that could be dangerous just knowing about it, and 2, for assuming that she was weak. But she wasn't her brother and knew at least 3 table manners. The first being how to sip tea angrily. Yagi, if I may. Nezu took a loud sip of his tea. You excellent tea, Mo. I might have to request you make some again. It was just hot leaf water. You're being rather selfish with this whole ordeal, Nezu said softly. All Might look taken aback. I am? Nezu nodded. Indeed. Firstly, as young Midoriya learns to control his quirk, it would be beneficial for him to include people within his own circle, just as you have done. All Might started to blush. They'd probably yell at her if she tried to take a picture, even if it was just to show Izuku. I see what you mean. I suppose I was rather selfish in denying Izuku a support group beyond myself. It wasn't like Izuku had a lot of friends right now. But hopefully that would change now that they were in the same school. Oh, she should introduce him to Nejire. Wait, that might be a bad idea. But ultimately inevitable. Mirio would probably love Izuku as well. And you don't have to worry about me. I'm pretty strong. Yeah, no. Indeed. Mo is one of our strongest students. She's capable in many situations, even if her grades are the best. And she's wonderful at getting people fired up. Nezu kicked his little legs when he laughed and took another sip of his tea. Why, if I wasn't so concerned that a receiving one for all would start a wildfire, I would have had a hard time choosing between her and Mirio. Hey, I don't catch things on fire so often anymore, and it's why I carry a fire extinguisher in my costume and a hate gauge just in case. All Might sighed and ran a hand through his hair. I suppose I should have more faith in the next generation. You're darn right you should. Mo felt her fangs brush against her lips as a toothy smile began to form. The crackling of flames alerted her that she was getting fired up, her hair dancing more like a fire now. Damn, why was it whenever someone doubted her, she just got all kinds of fired up? We've all grown up with you as a hero, All Might, and we've all dreamed of the day when one of us would surpass you. So don't go underestimating us. Well said, Mo. Nezu slapped his legs and hopped down off of his desk. Well then, now I'm more excited than ever to nurture the next generation. Come, I believe that the practical exam is going to be starting soon. Would you care to join us, Mo? Can I press the big button to summon the 0-pointer? Nezu hummed and looked at her, a pout forming on his face. But that's my favorite part, though I suppose I could allow it just this once. X. And both, and that his face really fucking hurt. Oh, but the moment someone screamed because their foot was stuck in some rocks and the giant robot showed up that was worth 0 points, so naturally he jumped at it and punched it. At least he knew he could use All Might's quirk, even if his limbs did explode slightly. He was going to need to work on that, assuming he passed. Izuku let out a sigh and groaned under the covers. Wait, when did he get into bed? Oh, are you awake, Deca? Izuku felt his heart kick into overdrive as he became very aware of Mo all at once. He snapped his eyes open and saw her flaming orange eyes, light green fiery hair, and her wicked sharp fangs. She was lying on the bed next to him. You're a fucking badass, aren't you? Nervousness hit him like a rock, and he did the only thing he could think of, which apparently was to throw himself out of the bed and onto the floor. Mo, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm just here to make sure you get home. Mo swung her legs over the bed and grabbed his hand, pulling him to his feet with a great deal of ease. And I wanted to be the first one to congratulate you on getting accepted. Oh, right, the entrance exam. I didn't actually pass, though. I don't think I did good on the written exam. She grabbed his shoulder and pulled him into a sideways hug. Maybe not, but you totally did smash the giant 0-pointer to bits. It was honestly kind of hot. I'm sure if there were any girls around when you did that, they would have instantly developed a crush on you. What, you saw that? Wait, really? I mean, I destroyed my arm. He looked at his arm and saw that it was whole. How, what happened to my arm? Recovery girl happened, you dork. You know she works at UA. Mo pushed him back and bit, then snagged his arm. And yeah, I also saw your final score. You're so getting in, Deku. Now come on, let's celebrate. Huh? But how did he pass? Chapter 5. A phone call is here. A phone call is here. A phone call is. Part of him was grateful that someone was giving him a break from all of this acting. It was so stressful trying to keep up his All Might appearance for so long, especially in front of cameras. Why did he agree to do all of the hero course acceptance letters again? But he was also annoyed that he would have to read to the shoot. Again, sorry. He waved towards an amused-looking Nezu and moved off the stage for a moment. I am answering the... Where the fuck are you? The voice sounded familiar, mostly in the tone. It wasn't angry, just demanding and sassy. Hadn't he met someone like that recently? A female. Who is this? And how did you? This is Mo. Oh, the fiery-haired girl that overheard his conversation with young Midori multiple times, and Nezu gave me your number. Damn rat. Toshinori gave Nezu a stern glare. Nezu just waved. Amo, what can I do for you? Why aren't you out here training Deku? Why did she keep interrupting him? Oh, well, I'm rather busy and it'll be a month before the semester starts. You are aware that his arms explode when he uses his quirk, right? That kind of seems like something that might need to be ironed out before the semester starts, right? Like that's kind of vital. So again, where the fuck are you? Why the hell was she so scary? Look, Miss Bakugo, I'm rather busy at the moment and a bit of, fine, I'll do it myself. It's not like you even gave good advice. Clench his butt cheeks and scream justice. Really? Well, if you want to join us, we'll be at that beach trying not to make Deku's limbs explode. She hung up on him. Izuku really had someone terrifying looking out for him, didn't he? Also, he was fairly certain that phone call did more damage to his pride than the fact that he'd be having to retire soon. X. Mo was kind of terrifying when she was mad, especially the way her hair went from being made of fire to being something like an inferno. It was also terrifying how she casually called All Might and started yelling at him. Most people wouldn't think that yelling at All Might was a good idea. She had showed up to his house early in the morning and dragged him out of bed to go back to training. Logically, it made sense, as even though the entrance exam was over, he still had a lot of work to do. He had kind of hoped for a day or two off to just relax and stress about everything that happened, though. But most said no, his limbs were exploding, and there was kind of an important thing to resolve as soon as possible, which again made sense. So now here he was on the beach that he was sick of seeing, watching Mo tie her hair up into a ponytail with one hand while she continued to dial on her phone like a pro. Today she was wearing a brown shirt that sat thicker than a snicker, and once again he found himself agreeing with her choice of clothing. She had on a pair of booty shorts that were probably shorter than the boxers he was wearing and flaming leggings that were snug on her. Needless to say, that was about all the motivation he needed to get out of bed, get dressed, and come to his personal hell again. Really, he had no idea what Mo had planned for him. Mo looked at her phone one last time and put it into her bag. All right, so All Might's busy. She put on the fakest smile she could, her hair starting to flare up again. Mo sighed and calmed herself by jumping in place and stretching slightly. She was bouncy. After a brief stretch, she smiled at him, hands on her hips. But the good news is that they should be here soon, Izuku asked, trying not to stare at any part of Mo for too long. Even looking at her eyes too long made him feel like he was being teased in some new and exciting way. Who's they? My lunatic classmates. Specifically the guys I went with into the top 4 of the sports festival last year. Mo gave him a thumbs-up pose and swelled with pride. They call us the Elite Four, like Pokemon. Her pride vanished in an instant, her shoulders slumped, and she kicked at the sand. Damn it, now we need to think of a new name. Mo grabbed at her hair and leaned over. I knew I shouldn't have let Nejire pick the name. Is Nejire one of the Elite Four? Izuku asked, smiling. Mo glared at him, killing his smile in cold blood. Don't call us that anymore. You ruined it for me. Sorry. He jumped back. She smiled at him. Oh my, Deku, are you afraid of little old me? She moved forward and cupped his cheek. It makes me so happy that I can still make you jump even though you now have All Might's quirk. I wonder how long I'll be able to tease you so easily. For the rest of his life, if he was lucky. I am. She stepped back laughing. Chill, Deku, chill. Who knows, maybe your arms explode because you're so high-strung a breeze could set you off. And whose fault was that? Okay, maybe a bit of it was his, but there was only so much teasing he could take. So, who are the other, your friends? He managed to ask, his face already feeling hotter than it would have during a workout. She had been so close then, and how were her hands so smooth? Why was she so pretty and active so early in the morning? Did she not sleep or anything? Oh, right, well, besides me, there's Tamaki Amajiki. He's kind of like you in that he's nervous, starts to sweat if you make eye contact for more than a few minutes, and is just a nice guy. His quirk is awesome, and I think you'd have a field day talking his ear off. Mo counted down on her fingers. Nejar Hato is one of my best friends at UA. She asks a lot of questions and acts like a bit of an airhead, but she's actually pretty smart. And lastly, there's Powered, a large, blond, muscular man without a shirt jumped off of the sidewalk and tumbled onto the beach, the motion hardly slowing him down. Sand went flying with every step he took. The blonde came to a sliding stop next to Mo and saluted her. Mo, I am here as requested. What happened to your shirt? Mo looked up and down at the man, a single eyebrow raised at him. Ooh, that's a good question. The blonde laughed loudly. I know. There was an old lady crossing the street, and Is this a setup to a lame joke? Well, I wouldn't say it's lame. Mo sighed and moved over to her. Your life. Was this Mo? How was he? The guy was tall, muscular, and could Anyways, Deku, this is Mirio Tagata. He's probably the strongest person in my class and the guy that could kick All Might's sorry ass. Mo slapped Mirio on the back as the Mirio, this is Deku. Wait, air, this is right, Mirio said as he put on Mo's shirt. The gray shirt was easily large enough to fit him, but it had pink text on it that said these thighs don't lie. If Mirio cared or even noticed, he didn't even blink. Nice to meet you, Izuku. I suppose you're the interesting person that Nejire has been pestering Mo about. Mo rolled her eyes. I am, maybe. He looked at Mo. Am I? Yep, Deka here is a late bloomer and his quirk has finally started to work properly. Mo placed a hand on her hip and gestured towards Izuku while looking at Izuku. But that's not actually his quirk. It's Mo scratched her head, some of the flames flickering up into the sky. Izuku, you're good at quirk. Well, it's kind of like there's all this power inside of my body, but when I use it, my arm kind of breaks because there's so much of it. Mirio nodded and grabbed onto his chin, eyes closed, and he nodded a few times at whatever thoughts came into his head. So it's a bit like the exact opposite of Nejire's problem. Oh, you're right. I didn't think it like that. Mo slapped Mirio on the shoulder and turned to Izuku with an excited look on her face, mouth open, showing off her two sharp fangs. She held that pose for a second before turning back to Mirio. Wait, how's that supposed to help? It's not, it was just an observation. Mirio turned to look at Mo. Remember how Nejire was during our first year? She didn't have enough energy, and any time she used her quirk, she'd pass out. She fixed it by increasing her energy, but for Izuku, we have a case where there's too much energy. That's literally what he just said. Mo face palmed. Deku, you're a nerd. Have you tried to analyze the fuck out of your own quirk yet? Analyze? Mirio asked. He's really smart with quirks and stuff. I owe his brain for some of the stuff that I can do. Mo stood proudly with her chest out and shoulders back. Izuku stared at them. Mo had a point. He'd spent so much time analyzing All Might's quirk, countless. Now that, so wait, if his quirk had too much energy stored so that going all out would make it so that he could break an arm, then he needed to work on lowering the amount of energy that he could. All he knew so far. He also used it in one massive burst, pushing everything out all at once. He looked towards the beach. A rocky outcropping was being slammed. That was when he used one. He needed it to be like a stream, a constant flow. But how? Does he always do that? Mirio asked. What? Mumble. Yeah, it's how I found out he has a crush on me. Izuku looked up at the smiling Mo and blinked slowly. I confessed like that. Nah, but now you did. Oh God, he wanted to die. Maybe if he used one for all in his brain, his head would explode. Chapter 6. You just gotta feel it and then go wab him. Having Nejar Hato of all people explain to Izuku Midoriya how to use a quirk that neither one of them fully understood was probably a mistake, but out of all the people that Mo knew at Nejar was the closest one to how she thought Izuku's new quirk worked. They both drew energy from somewhere inside of them and used it, and they both had downsides where Nejar risked passing out if she used too much of her energy. Izuku would probably explode. Whack boom! Izuku shouted, his face red as he mirrored Nejar over exaggerated movements like she was doing a blast attack out of an anime. No, no, no! It needs to be more Zabuf. Bakum! No, no, Mo twisted her face. She wasn't sure if she should be jealous that Izuku and Nejar were so easily able to understand each other. It only took Izuku half a day for him to stop being a blushing mess over Nejar, and now they were both acting like best friends. Maybe she teased Izuku too much, and now he had built up an immunity to pretty girls, which sucked. He was cute when he was blushing and stuttering. I'm surprised those two get along so well. Mirio came running up to her, still wearing that these thighs don't lie t-shirt she gave him. Apparently that meant they were dating. Apparently a lot of things meant that they were dating. For some reason, their entire school thought they were dating. They weren't. Mirio was gay. Big time. The only people that knew at school were herself, Nejar, and Tamaki. Yeah, well, you know how Nejar is. She can make friends with a hot-headed and frightening person like you. Mirio winked at her, placing his hands on his hips and smiling at Nejar and Izuku. Boy, I'm not that bad. Mo huffed, crossing her arms and glaring at Izuku, now doing some goofy pose with Nejair. He was twisted up like a pretzel while Nejair was just casually holding her head behind her head. Then Izuku fell. You did throw Nejair into a pit until she could fly out. And how many times did Tamaki need his stomach pumped? In all fairness, she got most of those ideas from Izuku. Well, not directly, more just inspired by him. She doubted that he would ever force Nejair into a hole. Oh, don't act like it didn't work. So do you have a plan for Izuku then? Mirio nudged her with his elbow, considering how you haven't done anything after tricking him into confessing like that a week ago. Would you drop that? I told you. She kicked at some of the sand on the beach, watching as Nejar flopped onto the sand with Izuku, probably so he wouldn't feel bad about falling over. Or to just show really it was 50/50 with her. I'd known Deku's had a crush on me for years. I just wanted to tease him a bit. Besides, him confessing was probably not. She'd have to press him for that. But in the meantime, she can give him a bit of motivation. Wait, that was it. Mirio, I have a great idea. He laughed. Well, that's not good. X. All of Mo's friends were so amazing. Mirio had one of the most complicated quirks he'd ever seen, but it was so simplistic. It was really amazing what he was able to do with it. Even if it did end up with Mirio in various states of undress if he wasn't careful, but with some heroes like Midnight, Mirio had a bit of wiggle room in terms of decency. And then there was Nejar, who was mildly terrifying because she had no idea what personal space was really cute and really easy to talk to, and those really weren't reasons why he should be afraid of it. It was actually how much sense she made when she was talking complete nonsense. He hadn't actually met Tamaki yet. Apparently, he was afraid of things like people outside in direct sunlight and existing. Mirio, what exactly are we doing today? It was nearing the end of March.
Okay, guys, we're gonna take like a 5 minute break. Yeah. Not because I'm bored with the story. No, no, no. My headphone's gonna need power very fast. It's almost out of power, and that's bad news for us. So let's see. Yeah. So it is 5 minutes. I'll just be there in 5 minutes. Okay, I'm back. Now, 25 minutes. Now, let's continue.
And after several weeks of trying to use All Might's quirk without having something explode, they had succeeded in doing absolutely nothing. Well, Izuku had gotten his ass kicked more times than he cared to count by Mirio and a handful of times by Nejar as part of Mo's impromptu and random training program he had been dragged into. Apparently, she was like this at school too, constantly motivating others to keep going like a malicious taskmaster that could make a corpse do jumping jacks. At least that's what Mirio said about her, and Izuku was inclined to agree. Mirio jammed one of the two poles into the ground, wiggling it firmly in place until it was level and then looked up. Apparently, we're playing volleyball today. Okay. Izuku shoved his own pole into the ground, making sure that the net between the two was nice and taut. It was the weekend, but it was still early enough that the cold early morning fog still clung to the beach. Why, I don't try to understand the machinations of Mo's mind, I just roll with it. Mirio placed his hands on his hips and laughed, striking a heroic pose. Besides, a bit of fun can go a long way. I guess I don't really even know the first thing about volleyball, though. Izuku grabbed one of the support wires for the pole and pulled it taut and dug it deep into the ground a few feet from the pole's base. A ch1-end. The very cute-sounding sneeze of Nejar Hato drew both boys' attention up the beach. Nejar was wearing a large sweater that went all the way down to her bare legs. She sniffed and rubbed her nose with her sleeve, then yawned with her whole body. Sorry, I needed to sneeze. Then there was Mo. She was standing in a black sports bikini bottom that left her pretty much all of her thighs exposed. Her stomach was likewise exposed, displaying her definition and hard work in keeping up with her workout. Her chest was contained in a black sports bra with orange flames on it that said "Burn Hot." Under her right arm, she held onto a black and green volleyball. Holy fuck, it's cold. Mo swore, her entire body shaking for a moment. Her hair flared for a moment and then grabbed the volleyball with both hands. I should have waited for fucking summer. Yeah, Nejar cheered, throwing one hand up into the air, showing more of her own thighs. Can I get dressed now? Later. Mo winked. But first, we're going to warm up with some volleyball. And we're going corks free. Woo. Nejar cheered again, this time with both hands up in the air, moving her sweater up just enough to show off her sky blue bikini bottom. Get ready to lose, Mirio? Ha ha, I think you're underestimating me and Izuku, Nejar. We're not going to go down without a fight. Mirio slapped Izuku on the back, his smile bright even against the dull fog. What? But I don't even know how to. Deku. Mo threw the ball at him, a small explosion of flame coming out from behind the ball to give it a bit of extra speed. If you manage to score a point, I'll give you a kiss. How does that sound? Even with his growing blush, Izuku couldn't help but smile. Mo was really good at motivation. All right, desperate. That was his current situation. The spring sun was getting high in the sky, and so far he hadn't even scored a single point. Mirio had scored a dozen or so points in his own, but as good as Mirio was at the sport, Mo was just that much better, and Nejar was just cheating. Another blast of hot air came from Mo as she sent the ball high up into the air, high enough that its shadow vanished from the ground right where Nejar was waiting for it. Just one single point. That was all he needed. This felt familiar. That same desperation he felt during the exam as he ran around not knowing what he could do, trying to feel any part of All Might's quirk inside of him. But now he could feel it, looming just behind his every action he took, an immeasurable amount of power slumbering. If he tried to take just a bit, the beast would awaken and go rushing forward, trying to squeeze out of a small hole and bursting the dam. Nejar spiked the ball from up high. Using her quirk, it spiraled around like a helix of pain, the ball actually warping from how fast it was going when powered by her quirk, and it was coming right towards him. He held his arms just like Mirio had showed him and received the hit. The impact stung like he had just gotten beaned by a baseball. His muscles screamed at him, his bones groaned, and his entire body was shaken. The ball went flying up towards Mirio. Was that enough? Could Mirio spike that? Wait, what was Mirio doing? He was fuck. Mirio stayed on the ground, moving to just under where the ball was about to land, and received it, serving it up high. Izuku, that bastard. How the hell was he supposed to spike a ball like that? His legs were burning just from receiving Nejar's spike. His legs moved on his own, the muscles still screaming at him for even agreeing to this in the first place. It was just like the first couple of days of jogging with Mo. Damn it, he started to run, hands flying behind his back as he stared at that ball floating in the air like the ultimate prize for him to take. It was so high up. He jumped, all but flying through the air with his hand outstretched behind him. The beast had woken up, gathering its senses and looking for a way out, any way out, so he gave it a way out. Everywhere. Every part of his body was now a way for it to flow out. He got to the ball, ready to hit it with all his force. He saw Mo, her fangs showing as she stared at him with her flaming eyes, her green hair blazing on top her head like a bonfire of life. Her legs were planted on the ground, legs spread wide as she was prepared to receive his spike. Then he'd just have to hit it harder than she could block. He put his all into that swing and hit the ball. Hard, his hands stung from the force. His entire body from his ears to his toes felt like he had just gotten the mother of all sunburns. He could feel his teeth. Worse was that the ball didn't land on Mo's side of the court. Instead, he hit it at a bad angle, sending it out to sea. Way out to sea, and through a large wave, the water flying up and making a rainbow. But the most amazing part of it all was that his hand. It wasn't broken. Sure, it hurt like all fucking hell, but he could still move his fingers. He landed on the sand and his felt air forced his lungs. Everything hurt. But he had used All Might's quirk just then right, without breaking anything. But he didn't score a point. Damn it. Well, you're still moving, so I guess you didn't break anything. Mo stepped over him, running a tongue over her teeth, both hands on her hips. She looked hot from this angle. How you feeling, Izuku? Did I score a point in volleyball? Nope, I think you just hit the ball across the bay. She leaned down and grabbed onto his hand and pulled him to his feet. But you totally scored at least one badass point, which I guess counts. Somehow the kiss against his forehead made everything feel better. Win the sports festival, and I'll give you a real one. Chapter 7. Mo let out a long yawn and stretched out onto the roof of one of the UA buildings. Was she allowed to be up here? No, did she care? Also, no, was it one of her favorite spots in UA? Not really. It just overlooked one of the track fields, the one that Aizawa was probably going to skip orientation to test his students at. She couldn't wait to find out who else was in Izuku's class and watch him wipe the floor with his quirk. And he'd better. They put in a lot of work to make sure that his limbs wouldn't break every time he tried to save someone, and knowing Izuku, he'd probably try to save someone even when they didn't want to be saved. A trait that was both admirable and annoying. If he does well, maybe she should give him a reward. Maybe a selfie. That might be a good idea. What kind of selfie? Lingerie. Nah, at this point, that might kill Izuku. Swimsuit. Maybe once it was warmer after the sports festival. She did need a new one, though. She should send him a pic of her hero costume. He'd probably like that. Give him a bit of eye candy and let him geek out about her costume a bit. Wait, what was his costume going to be? Now that she thought about it, maybe that wasn't the best idea. She'd rather just surprise him with it in person. It was bound to happen soon, like tomorrow, after she guilt trips All Might into letting her be his TA. Nez was down for it. That rat was always down for a little bit of chaos. It was amazing. Oh, she should go shopping for a dress or something and ask him what he thought. That'd be good, right? Was she using her body too much? Probably. So what are we watching up here? Nejire, with little to no warning, or even an indication of how she found Mo, plopped down right next to her. Behind Nejire, a very timid Yui was followed suit. Aren't you two going to get in trouble for skipping class? Mo asked, looking between the two girls. Generally speaking, wherever Nejire went, Yu either knew about it, wanted to know about it, or was there. It was kind of adorable. I asked Sensei if I could watch the new kids because they weren't at the ceremony, and then I asked Yu Sensei if I could borrow her for a while, and they said yes, and now we're here. Nejar hummed, kicking feet against the ground. How are you here? Ditching. You leaned forward. Why don't you have like perfect attendance or something? Oh yeah, she did. Fuck, too late to worry about that now. Your hair's doing the burning thing. You commented, more than usual. What can a girl get fired up? I want to watch the newbies get roasted by Aizawa-sensei. She's just excited because her boyfriend is down there. Nejar smiled ear to ear. The sheer smugness she had for knowing something was eye-rollingly great. His name is Izuku and he's cute. I think you'd like him, he's also super strong. His quirk is like mine, but instead of going pew, he goes bam. You're dating a freshman. You asked, one pierced eyebrow raised. You had a habit of dyeing her hair frequently, like once a month if she could get away with it. Something Mo was rather jealous of. She just wished she could make her hair red, or like a kick-ass silver. She would look amazing with flaming silver hair. Not really, he has a crush on me, and Nejar leaned over, pressing her chin into Mo's shoulder and stared at her with wide blue eyes. But you like him too? So you're dating? Mo rolled her eyes and pushed Nejar away with a gentle but firm hand to the face. Not now, we're not. But why? Nejar said from behind Mo's hand, her arms flailing briefly. You two would be cute. Mo removed her hand and leaned back against the wall, staring up at the clouds for a moment. I think I want Deku to be a hero before he's my boyfriend, if that makes any sense. Like, I know it's weird, but as he's right now, caught between who he was and who he will be, I don't think dating him now would be a good idea. Suo, Yui leaned back as well, clicking her teeth and going into her judgment mode. Most quirk might be fire, but Yui could burn just about anyone. You're manipulating some freshman that has a crush on you into becoming your ideal boyfriend despite the fact that you like him now for some reason. Also, you can avoid being accused of going all Ara Ara on your little brother's friend, you shallow bitch. How'd you know he was my little brother's friend? Mo blinked, leaning forward as she saw Class 1 making their way out onto the field. Also, ouch, you shrugged. Just a hunch. What's Ara Ara? Nejar asked. I'll tell you when you're older. You patted Nejar's shoulder. You're like a month older than me. Mo leaned forward, watching carefully as Aizawa scolded his class and made the stakes clear. Beyond that, she could make out some of the kids in her brother's and Izuku's class. She knew one of them right off the bat, Shoto Todoroki, Endeavor's son. Now that was interesting. Beyond him, she recognized a few of the other students from the entrance exams, the red-haired kid that ran through robots shouting manly stuff, and the ginger-haired girl that could make her hands big.
They were having a racing medal with the ginger hair girl. I don't know her name specifically, but at least that's good news. You did your job and play some meta with someone that's actually capable, that would actually more sense getting in. Might not be class 1B, but that, it works out. He'll be fixed out. Let's continue.
It looked like a good group of students. Between her brothers Shoto and Izuku, there was a lot of raw firepower in there. Yeah, they might even be the next top students in a year or two. But first, she needed to watch Aizawa's little tests. First was the 50-meter dash. There was a guy with engines in his legs that was real quick, and some frog girl. They were pretty quick, a couple of slow runners, and then it was a 2-for-1. Kaken vs. Deku. Mo leaned forward, watching what would happen. How would this play out? Her brother was crafty with his quirk and would probably use it to push himself forward, but what would Izuku do? They didn't really practice anything like running with Izuku's quirk before, but All Might was pretty quick still. The Katsuki took off from the start line with an explosion and continued to run forward. Izuku, stunned by the blast, stumbled for a second before running after Katsuki. Maybe he'd be running faster if he was chasing her. Still, it looked pretty fast. Damn, she should have brought her own timer. Though Aizawa looked less than pleased. But that was normal. Then it was time for the long jump, and once again her brother and Izuku were up against one another. But this time Izuku waited. Her brother took off easily, clearing the pit by pushing himself around with his explosions. Izuku squatted for a moment before he leaned forward and started to jump. That bastard. Izuku, but Aizawa. Oh, she. Izuku started talking to Aizawa and looked. Oh, he did. That was. Oh, no. It looks like he's getting another go. Did Aizawa-sensei stop his quirk before? That was rude. He saw Deku break his arm and Mo stood, crossing her arms, and part of her walked aside. Izuku took his spot again. She could see him concentrating on the jump, focusing on his quirk. A moment later, Izuku launched forward, clearing the long jump pit, and then some. Several of his classmates had to dodge out of the way as he went way beyond the previous furthest and continuing onward, only stopping when he landed on the grassy slope that separated the field from the buildings. Fuck yeah! Mo cheered, jumping up slightly, and then quickly covered her mouth, hoping Izuku didn't see her. Whoa, so that was kind of impressive. What is this quirk? You asked. It's like All Might's. Mo pushed some of her hair behind. What's you? Nah, Mo smiled, watching Izuku dust. It didn't look all. He's going to be stronger. And then she saw her firecracker of a little brother making an ass of himself by charging at Izuku with fire in his hands. Deku, well, it was time to perform her sisterly duties and kick her brother's ass. X. Deku, what the fuck? Kakin swore, charging at him, using his quirk to move forward like a deranged monkey. Anger was flushed in his face, and a snarl dominated his mouth. In short, Kakin was pissed. You quirkless loser, what the fuck was that? Bakugo! Aizawa-sensei shouted from nearby, unfurling his scarf and running forward. His red eyes were locked on Kakin this time, and the explosion stopped, but Kakin was still charging at him. He looked really mad. Madder than he normally did. Holy crap, what was he supposed to do? How was he supposed to explain his quirk? Could he punch Kakin? Would Mo be okay with that? Kakin would probably deserve it if he was going to threaten him, right? Boy, dickweed. Izuku looked up to see Mo flying from above, both of her feet hitting Kakin right in the face as she landed hard on her brother. More importantly, Izuku discovered that she was wearing black underwear when her skirt flew up. Cool your jets before I kick your ass. Fuck off, bitch. Did you know? Did you fucking know that Deku had a quirk? Kakin struggled from the ground as Mo continued to dominate him, despite Kakin being taller and probably physically stronger than Mo. Then again, most of Kakin's rage was focused on Izuku. Mo flicked Kakin in the nose like he was an ordinary puppy. Don't call me that at school. And yes, I did. Mo Aizawa said her name with more than a fraction of malice. What are you doing here? And why should I not suspend you for assaulting one of my students during class? Oh, I was just watching your class. Mo got off of Kakin and had her hands behind her back, now acting all innocent. She looked really cute in her school uniform, especially with her hair in a ponytail. And I have a note from my mom. I can kick Katsuki's ass whenever he gets out of line. Bitch, Kakin growled, pushing himself up off the ground and glaring at everything, though the glare turned into something darker when he looked at Izuku. Izuku replied, smiling ear to ear, partially because of Kakin's suppressed scream, but mostly because of Mo's wink as she was sent to the principal's office. And just like that, the social norm he was used to in his classes with Kakin was flipped on its head. Chapter 8. His new class was a mixed bag. On the one hand, there were terrifying people like their homeroom teacher Aizawa-sensei and a few students that made him want to jump up, run away, and hide, like Kakin, who was still glaring at him and probably wanted to make his head explode. Still, even with those slightly rough patches, there were even more good spots in his class. He even made a few friends on his first day of class. There was Ijiro Kirishima that said bro a lot and talked about how manly things were, Ada Tenya, who was rather strict but also a nice, honest guy, and then there was Itsuka Kendo, a girl that he managed to talk to and had basically become the big sister of the entire class when she knocked Kakin out. It really did just feel like a completely different world than middle school. Maybe this was what having a quirk was like. It was awesome. And he was even able to not get expelled yesterday thanks to all of the hard work Mo put him through to control his quirk. If things kept up like this, he might even be able to. Hey, Izuku, why are you smiling like that, Izuku? Yeah, man, you got this big goofy grin on your face. Ijiro turned in his seat and looked back at the two. Oh, Izuku felt his cheeks warm and he squirmed in his seat a bit. I'm just excited for hero training today. Silence, please. It had chopped at the. I understand. The door slammed. I am coming through the door like a normal, like a jackass. Now get your giant butt in there. He knew that voice. He knew that voice way too well. It just left the one question that he found himself asking about Mo ever since he met her. Why the hell was she here? All Might stumbled into the room, his smile gone, and he now wore well, he didn't want to say that the number one pro hero was now pouting, but he was totally pouting. Miss Bakugo, you ruined my entrance, and what are you doing out of class? And in your hero costume, no less. Mo walked into the classroom and instantly dragged the spotlight onto herself. This was his first time seeing her in her hero costume. Her outfit was a light gray jacket with the collar, belt, and wrist guards being black with a small red line in each. Red trim bordered the jacket, and large white buttons were pinned to the front of it. She had a fire extinguisher on her back, and her mask was black, making her red-orange eyes pop against her flaming green hair. But for Izuku, there was just one thing more important than everything: her thighs. Holy shit, her thighs. Mo's knee-high socks turned into a swooping band above her knee and continued up under the skirt-like flap of her jacket, revealing a generous amount of her thick thighs that no doubt saved lives. Coupled with the fact that her jacket did little to diminish her bust, he was starstruck. And he'd seen her in sportswear before. "Oi, Izuku." Itsuka nudged him with a slightly large finger. "You're drooling." "So are you." "Shut up." Itsuka wiped her mouth, her ears turning red. "But what's Katsuki's sister doing here?" "Hey there, Class 1A. I'm Mo Bakugo, the hero called Burnin'. I'm going to be All Might's student assistant." Mo waved at the class, grabbing onto one of her feet from behind and stretching slightly while fixing her boot. Her toothy smile, complete with those sharp fangs of hers and her black mask that covered her eyes, made her look ever so slightly crazy. Well, crazier than she normally looked. Great, now he had a crush on the TA. What? All Might stood shoulders back, looking a bit annoyed. "Since when?" "Since I asked Nezu and he said it was a great idea." Mo stuck her own chest out, both hands on her hips now. "Oh, but don't worry. You'll have Nejire for Class 1B and Mirio for the second-year classes. Tamaki refuses to acknowledge anything other than a wall. Wouldn't there be better uses of your time?" All Might asked, glaring at the much shorter woman. "Now, learning how to bring the best out of those we work with is vital experience, too. Wouldn't you say, All Might? And didn't Nezu tell you anything about this?" All Might just looked annoyed for a moment before coughing and smiling towards the class. "Well, all right then. I could always use an extra hand. Now then, let's get you all into your hero costumes. We have no time to dilly-dally because today we'll be doing battle training." The side walls opened, revealing a suitcase for each student, their costume and gear located inside. Izuku reached for his bag. Unlike the others, he already had his mother had gotten it for him, and he was going to Max. "Miss Bakugo." All Might right at his shoulder as they stood all alone at the Cityscape training ground, waiting for the class to show up. He sounded gruff and more than a little annoyed at her, which was pretty much mutual at this point. "I must ask what you're planning." Mo rolled her eyes and placed a finger on her chin before smiling up at All Might. "I told you, didn't I? Nezu assigned me to be your student assistant for Class 1 and call me Mo. Or Burnin'." "Yes, and I confirmed that." "Oh, so that's why he was on the phone earlier. He didn't trust her." "Well, she wouldn't trust herself either, even when she was being honest. But apparently she got along great with Nezu. They both loved a little bit of chaos, but even then she did have to pull out all the stops to get him to see things her way. He said it was your idea, but I can't help but feel like you have alternative. I don't trust you." Man, it felt so weird telling that to the number one hero of peace and justice that had ushered in a golden age for Japan, and from the look on All Might's face, that might have been the first time anyone has ever said that to him in a long, long time. What would Deku? Yes, you spent a year training his body so he could use his quirk, but once he was able to use it, you saw the damage he took and decided to not do anything with him for 2 months besides what? One motivational walk on the beach and stalking him like some Yandir. She was looking right at him now and had a finger pressed into his chest. Was she power tripping by yelling at All Might? Yes, yes, she was. That's like just abandoning him in his time of need. His limbs were exploding. It took over a month for us to get him to use it safely, and even then it looks like he wants to scream in pain. So yes, I don't trust you to give Izuku the respect he deserves. Man, all those hours spent arguing with herself in the shower were finally paying off. Don't get me wrong, All Might. You're still an amazing person. You make everyone around you feel safe, myself included. But right now, you're dealing with people that are making the choice to throw away their safety for others. Your job isn't to make them feel safe. It's to make them feel ready. Damn, did she really say all that? All Might stared at her for a long time, his stoic face giving her not a clue what he could possibly be thinking. Then he laughed and clapped his hand on her back. "Well said, Mo. Would you believe that is the best advice for teaching I've gotten? You've changed my mind about this student assistant business. I'm going to be relying on you. On the one hand, great, now she had to worry about some other clueless idiot besides Izuku and her brother. But on the other hand, fucking All Might said he was going to be relying on her. That was going to go straight to her ego. The students were starting to come through. She had seen the class list and had taken the time to learn what their names and quirks were. Some of them had some great costume designs too. They've already taken the first step to becoming ready. Just putting on the costume makes you want to say I'm a hero. Now let's reaffirm that. She waved over the first of the students and smiled up at him. He was tall and fully armored. Nice costume. It has a very Tenya vibe to it. Yes, thank you. It's based off of my brother's design. The tall man stood rigid and gave a sharp bow. Speaking of brothers, Mo spun on her heel and looked her low. He had grenades for hands, but most of his costume looked good, a bit on the punk side mixed with a bit of leather to make her question his sexuality. Fuck off, Katsuki growled, glaring at her. You look like a ska. Oh, you wanted to match me, too. Good choice in mask, Katsuki. She patted him on the shoulder and marched to the next student and tried not to laugh when she heard him rip the mask off and throw it to the ground. Her brother was such a tsundere. Shoto Todoroki, right? She asked, approaching the strange son of Endeavor. He was wearing a white suit that was half covered in ice. He nodded. Yes, right, you look like a villain. She placed a hand on his shoulder that wasn't covered in ice. Really, dish the whole ice half thing. You're going to scare people instead of helping them like All Might. He blinked at her, then nodded. I will, thank you. She passed through most of Izuku's class, only stopping briefly on a few such as Momo and Itsuka to really go into detail about their costume. While none were inherently bad, there were a few standout ones. And then there was, that was so, Deku. She jogged over to him and looked him up and down. How did he still manage to look so skinny in it? She'd seen his muscles. It was kind of impressive. I'm not sure about that mask, but you look good. Did Mama Inko make that for you? His eyes were wide, and Izuku pulled down the mask and swallowed once, nodding. Yes, she did. It was a jumpsuit she bought, but she made the hood. Well, it'll do for now, but it might not be too durable. I think if you try to use your quirk and that you might rip it to shreds, so be careful today. She then reached over and grabbed his fake ears. I like the ears, though. Thanks, I like your costume too. She smiled and patted him on the head. All right then, 1A, get fired up and listen to All Might. Chapter 9, Nope. Veto rejected. Not going to happen. Mo stomped out in front of All Might and stood proud, one hand on her hips while she pointed at her current and most recent objection. There is no way I'm going to let those two go head-to-head against each other. MS Bakugo, I understand your concern about putting your loved ones in danger, but All Might started. She stopped him with a laugh. In danger. Please, those two are the danger. I want you to think about this for 2 seconds, All Might. Mo moved over and ruffled her brother's hair vigorously. Sure, Katsuki squirmed and swore at her, but it was just helping her point get cemented into the ground. Here's what's going to happen if you have this idiot go up against Deku. He's going to ignore everything and find Deku, then they're both going to get fucked up. Like this dumbass can't even do proper teamwork. Fuck you, bitch. Katsuki swore. She was so telling Mom. Mo moved over and grabbed Deku's head. She might have been a bit more gentle running her fingers through his hair, and this idiot would fight him, and if he's not careful his limbs will explode. And chances are he won't do proper teamwork either when he fights my dumbass little brother. Mo Izuku whined, his blush extra cute. I'd try. So there is no way that having these two go head-to-head is a good idea in the slightest. Mo let go of both of their heads and walked back over to All Might. I don't care that you think random teams and random matches ups is a good idea, but you need to step up and make corrections when shit gets bad. Fuck you, bitch. I can use teamwork. Katsuki shouted. He was taking her Beto so well. Whoa, I see why she's the TA. She can yell at All Might. Is that even legal? She does have a point. Wait, is she really Katsuki's older sister? I'm starting to see it. Is it wrong that watching her yell at All Might turns me on? The last one came from Izuku's new, apparently very lesbian friend, Itsuka. Though more like to imagine Izuku nodded along with that. Well, All Might took a step back and looked at all the students. He then coughed. In the field, you never know who you might end up working with, so more often than not you do. That's why we make teams. Mo smiled and raised an eyebrow at All Might. I guess that doesn't apply to someone like you, but most of us are going to end up working for an agency where we'll build up a connection with other heroes. I'm not saying learning to work with others isn't important, All Might. It is, but you need to make a correction here. All Might looked like he was torn between wanting to punch something and wanting to run away. You make a valid point, Mo. Very well, I will leave the teams and the matchmaking up to you. All Might leaned in, especially since you know more of their quirks. Maybe she should see if Neza would be willing to pay her for this. All right then. Mo turned and made sure that her heel clicked on the ground. Now we need to figure out what to do with these two teams. Mo licked one of her sharp fangs, enjoying that small bit of pain that came with it. Izuku was paired with Itsuka, and Katsuki was paired with Momo. This should be easy, but she just needed to work her brother a bit. Since Katsuki can work on a team, why don't? Fuck you. Katsuki stomped his foot. I can work with any of these pathetic extras. Mo smiled and watched as her brother's eyes went wide. Is that so? Hook, line, sinker. Why don't we test that? X. You fell for that hard. Izuku muttered just loud enough for Katsuki to hear. His now very angry and very explodey teammate just turned towards Izuku, seething in what could only be considered the purest form of anger possible. Katsuki didn't so much as swear, growl, or make any real noise as he pointed a finger towards Izuku. Only the sound of his teeth grinding against one another broke the silence. Why did he get caught up in all of this? Katsuki's problem with him was Katsuki's problem. It wasn't his fault. Okay, lately he had been egging him on, but how could he not? It was so easy to set Katsuki off. He did it twice daily by breathing weirdly. So now it was stuck in a metaphorical get-along shirt by having to go up against Itsuka and Momo for their class challenge. Well, at least we're heroes, Izuku muttered, looking up at the building. He didn't know much about Momo, but Itsuka seemed to like the girl, but he wasn't sure what kind of like that was. Was it a romantic like or as friend-like, or what other likes were there? Still, Momo had placed high during Aizawa-sensei's test, and her quirk was versatile too. Then there was Itsuka. She had gotten 5th overall during the entrance exam with a good mix of villain and rescue points, and he was fairly certain that both of them were extraordinarily smart, like scary smart. They were going to go in there, and it was going to be a trap, and then they would get their asses handed to them by some combination of giant hands, glue nets, and whatever the hell Momo was already making up there. And he was going in with A. He looked at Katsuki again, who just growled, a very vicious Pomeranian attack dog. You know what, if we don't win this, your sister is going to say it's proof that you can work together with others. Izuku didn't bother looking directly at Katsuki. He knew his childhood friend was likely seething at the implication. And then we'll probably end up having to be paired up again and again just so that we can learn to team up with each other, and that if we keep failing, it will just get worse and worse. And Deku, Katsuki said in a normal voice. And this was why they were going to fail. Why we need to think of a plan and use teamwork, not just to win, but to actually pass. If you rush in there on your own and win, then we won't. Shut up. Katsuki growled, his shoulders heaving with a heavy breath. I fucking know. I know I can run in there and win this whole thing on my own. I know that you could probably pull some bullshit off too because of your fucking quirk, even if your fucking arm explodes. Then why are you being such an asshole about this? Izuku asked, looking at Katsuki. Katsuki took a deep sigh and seemed to calm himself down. Well, as calm as Katsuki could get when he was pissed off to one extreme or another, because I'm not sure what I hate more, working with you or having my sister be right about something. So you're trying to think of a way to not actually work with me and prove Mo wrong. Katsuki nodded. He was glaring down at the concrete pathway that separated them from the building. They only had about a minute or two left. Well, look at it this way. If we're near each other, your attacks will probably end up hitting me. Maybe even on purpose. We're both short-range fighters, and you're a lot faster than me, so we'd probably end up falling over each other a lot anyways. Izuku looked up at the building and smiled. What's that smile for? Deku, how well do you think you can fly? Izuku asked, half to himself, staring up at the open windows of the building. Katsuki looked up and a wide feral smile blossomed on his face. Honestly, it felt like the kind of smile a predator might give a midnight snack. Better than you can throw me. Their plan was one that had been engraved into the history of warfare since the dawn of conflict, divide and conquer. The buzzer sounded with all the details still up in the air, and they launched their plan with nothing but the start and end worked out. Izuku grabbed Katsuki and used one for all to throw him up above the building, where Katsuki would use his explosions to fly in and start fighting. Izuku rushed in, his legs burning from his first footsteps that shattered the ground beneath him, and his shoes. Those red sneakers his mother had bought him exploded off of his feet, and he had to kick the far wall to slow his momentum, which was probably the dumbest way he could think of to roll his ankle. Wincing at the pain, Izuku stumbled around one corner after another, using all of his limbs to move as he climbed up the stairs towards the goal. Partway up, he realized that the entire area was covered in a white damp smoke, likely something that Momo made to dampen Katsuki's explosions. There was no sign of Itsuka either. The signs of battle were all about from the top floor, where Katsuki's swearing could be heard. Through the mist, Izuku could only see a few small lackluster explosions and could only hear Katsuki swearing. Well, time for more teamwork. Izuku drew back both of his hands and gathered one for all in them. All Might had changed the weather with a clap, so he could hopefully blow this smoke away. The clap stung a lot, his hands feeling like they were covered in pins and needles as his finger twisted awkwardly a bit and his pinky might have been dislocated, but the end result sent the smoke out of the building and Momo tumbling to the side. With Itsuka busy with a now full-strength Katsuki, Izuku charged for the bomb, nearly knocking it over with another burst of speed. But the end result was clear. They had won, and hopefully that meant that they wouldn't have to work together again. Chapter 10.
Alright guys, we're gonna take a little bit of break, not because I'm bored. No, actually I'm actually hungry. I'm actually gonna make some get something ready. So you guys better get yourself ready as well. Take the plate, put the fuck right there. This is right back there. Smells horrible. This is supposed to that's just the same code. So maybe put it in there for 2 minutes now. Oh, she's in line. Okay, grab some of this. Ugh. Damn. Okay, let me take these out. Ugh. Tops are already popped off. Tops. So let's get that ready. Minutes. Hopefully there's enough. This one I'm frozen. You shouldn't have left out for that longer than that. Damn it. If that's happening. I'm gonna ask things else. That worked way better than I thought. I thought that would go. Okay, 2 lives are basically already dead. Oh my god. Hi guys, I'm hungry for a fat. So this also we need another chapter break. Like, there's almost somewhere. No, that's like an hour later. Almost an hour, a couple minutes, but that's not really bad. No, it still needs to be burnt a little more. Needs a little more burnt. Just needs a little more heat to actually work. Okay, maybe I did it for like an extra minute, 30 seconds longer than it had to be, so that'd be fine. Damn it, the minute didn't really melt how the way it's supposed to be. I think, oh yeah, clear. Mm. I can hear this thing that's gonna burn my hands if I don't be careful enough. Huh?
Do you want to get expelled? Aizawa-sensei growled, glaring at Mo. So far, the bus trip to the USJ had been far more tense than Izuku would have liked, mostly because of Aizawa-sensei having to cover for All Might and Mo being, well, Mo, again, I'm not in your class. Besides, my grades are too high and you respect me now, so even if I annoy you, you won't expel me. Mo stuck her tongue out at Aizawa-sensei, which just earned her another growl from their sensei, but nothing else was said. Whoa, I don't think I've seen anyone talk back to Aizawa-sensei like that, not even All Might. Denki muttered from beside Izuku. The bus seating was split down the center so the two sides were facing each other, giving it a far more personal atmosphere. Katsuki, how come your sister is so much cooler than you? Instead of swearing, Katsuki just growled and sunk further into his seat, arms crossed as he glared out the window. That was probably a sign of maturity. Hey, now my little brother is cool. Mo swung to hang her arms over the back of her seat and looked at the class. Yes, he's a bit of a jerkwad, but he wants to be a hero, and anyone that wants to be a hero, no matter how much people tell them they shouldn't, is a pretty cool guy in my books. Isn't that right, Deku? Right? Why was she smiling at him like that? Mo, if you keep this up, I'll replace you with a rescue dummy. Aizawa-sensei kicked the edge of Mo's seat. I'm not going to let you take over my class like you did All Might. Well, if you replace me, I'm sure Deku will rescue me. She gave him one last wink before sitting correctly in her seat. He's put a lot of work into his quirk, you know. Hey, you know Izuku. Ijiro spoke from beside him. Your quirk's pretty awesome. It reminds me of All Might. Crap, was it that easy to see through? Well, Mo already knew, and there was a chance that Katsuki knew, but that was because they overheard their conversation, so there was no way that was it, or was it? Still, no matter how he looked at it, that was true, wasn't it? He did have All Might's quirks, so of course they would be similar. Well, dude, relax, it's a compliment. Ijiro made his own hands hard and pointy with his quirk. It's a lot cooler than my quirk. Hey, a giant finger from Iduska poked Ijiro in the chest. Dude, your quirk is great. Sometimes simple quirks are all it takes. Hee hee, sorry, it's a good guess. I spoke too soon. You sure did. Itsuka nodded, her hands returning to normal. Then she turned her green eyes towards Mo. What's your quirk, Mo? I don't think you've ever used it. Does it have to do with your awesome hair? Hee hee, oh you. Mo made a fake girly flattery move and wiggled in her seat. But not really, yeah, my hair is kind of a part of my quirk, but it's not really something I use with my
Oh,
quirk.
fuck.
Like fumigage over there, I look cool, but it's not really directly related to my quirk. To be honest, I have no idea where I got my hair from. That's great, but what about your quirk? You're in the Elite Four, right? It is to be something awesome, Handa asked, leaning back in his seat. He was staring at Mo a lot. Why did Izuku want to punch him for that? Oh, right, you were crush and thighs. If anybody was going to get their head crushed by those thighs, it was going to be him. Wait, what? Believe it or not, our quirks aren't that awesome. Mo turned in her seat again, one arm draped over the side of it. Nejar just lets her shoot out blasts of energy in exchange for her stamina. Mirio lets him fall through things. Tamaki's is a quirk that I would say is one of the most powerful because it lets him do so much. He can change his body with how he looks. Like he eats a clam and he can make hard clam shells. Yeah, but what about you? Mina stomped her feet and flailed her arms. Well. Mo laughed and popped her neck, then her knuckles. Let's just say I can get real fired up. That's not fair. Why won't you just tell us? Tsuyu ribbited and stuck her tongue out for a moment. Haven't you noticed with how she treats Izuku, she likes to tease people? Guilty. Mo laughed, but if you really want to know, you can ask my little brother about how awesome his big sister is. All eyes turned towards Katsuki. Even Ozawa was glancing towards the younger bakugo with mild interest. Katsuki looked at their classmates and took in a deep, calm breath. Fuck off. You see, this is why no one likes you. Itsuka crossed her arms and pouted. X. Mo smiled and stared at the vastness of the USJ. It had been way too long since she had actually done rescue training. Man, back then, Nejar had fallen asleep after trying to fly, and Tamaki had to save her by turning his entire body into jello. She wasn't sure if Tamaki was over the considering how Nejar thanked him with a kiss to the cheek. Nejar, on the other hand, probably didn't even remember it. 13 was talking about how they made the USJ and the students were asking questions. Well, today wasn't going to be as fun as hero training would be, and All Might wasn't even here for her to mess with. Still, at least her brother was still being a tsundere. A dark static noise behind her down the stairs drew her attention, and she turned to look. Finally, something that wasn't boring lectures. Wait, she really shouldn't be happy that something like this was happening, even if she totally was. Though the dark spark and spiraling gas that grew into a large wall of black mist didn't sit well with her. A white-gloved hand attached to a mop of light blue hair emerged from the mist, a glint of red eyes behind the fingers sparkling darkly. That definitely wasn't on the schedule. A sensei. Mo called out, glancing at Aizawa and pointing towards the emerging man with dozens of others following him out. I think training just jumped out of the pan and into the fire, she said, a small smirk on her face. An audible smack could be heard from behind Izuku, Katsuki face-bombing hard enough to make his face red. Permission to turn up the heat. Tamura observed from the back of the crowd, watching the teachers up the stairs. Someone was missing. Where's All Might? Our information said that he'd be here. Tamura scratched his neck softly, the annoyance of incomplete data starting to get to him. He glared up the stairs. 2 teachers and someone else. Not quite tall enough to be a teacher, but taller than the students. Well, it's no matter. Even if we can't break his body, we can still break his spirit, he said, a malicious grin crossing his face. Villain Vanguard squad attack. It would be a wasted effort for me to order you to stay put, wouldn't it? Aizawa asked Mo as he regarded the people flooding into the arena below them. I mean, I'd hear you, but like hell I'm sitting this one out. Besides, I do have my license, so technically I can't get in trouble for helping. Mo said, almost boastfully, throwing her hands wide behind her. Fine, just keep up. Aizawa said, tensing for the jump down the stairs, and pulled out his scarf. She glanced back at Izuku and made sure to give him an oh-so-obvious wink, if only so that his classmates would tease him for it later. Now, I'll take a good look. This is how the pros work. She channeled the heat inside her out through her palms and released the built-up pressure, a huge blast of steam launching her up and forward like a rocket. Man, how cool is that? Ijiro said in awe, watching Mo dive towards the villains, her palms and feet igniting on the way down. A tremendous explosion and quaking shook the stairs as Mo hit the ground like a meteor, sending a dozen of the villains flying, cracking the concrete with her impact. Hey, Aizawa, what was that about keeping up? She said over her shoulder at Aizawa, just now getting to the bottom of the stairs. She heard the audible sigh from the exasperated teacher and gave a chuckle before launching into a steam-powered spin, slamming her emblazoned feet into the thick hide of one of the heteromorphic villains, hitting him hard enough to send him careening into the wall of one of the far-off domes. Thanks for flying with us. We hope you enjoyed your trip on Burnin' Air, she called out as the dome crumbled from the impact. Another dumbass was sent flying into the ground with a powerful blast of heat right to the face. He started to scream. Oh, come on, that's just like a really bad sunburn. I'm sure you'll be fine. Well, maybe. If this was all there was, she might not even have to kick it up a notch. Hell, her brother's class could probably take these mooks. Or at least they could have if a giant black fist hadn't just slammed into her stomach. This wasn't right. Some fiery bitch was tossing aside his cannon fodder around like, well, cannon fodder. But she was doing too fast, barely slowing down as she moved from one opponent to the next, her attacks releasing more steam and fire as she hit and jumped. He watched her jump and knock over at least 20 of his team, the itching on his neck getting even more irritating. Finally, after she had knocked out one of their biggest heavy hitters, he made up his mind. Namu, take her out. She's too much trouble, Tamira said to the hulking black monstrosity next to him. There was a growl of acknowledgement, and the monster moved in a burst of speed. XXX, breathe, just fucking breathe, damn it. Her diaphragm was obviously on vacation now. She'd probably have one hell of a nasty bruise. And at least one rib wasn't where it should be. Hot air expands. Forcing her heat inward, she forced her chest to expand, taking in that first sharp breath that kick-started the whole system. That son of a bitch. She pushed upwards, taking stock of her body. Nothing but a rib or two was actually broken. She had managed to cushion the blow with another blast of hot air. No doubt Recovery Girl would have a hissy fit if she tried to fight with a broken rib, but she could deal with that later. More importantly, how was the fight? Most of the mooks had been scattered, and the big hulking black bird-brained son of a bitch that had blindsided her was currently manhandling Aizawa-sensei. His arm was bent in a funny way, but he was still struggling. That was good. And it looked like the blue-haired jerk was walking towards Aizawa. He must be the boss. Time to see how he liked his sneak attack. X. What the hell was that whistling? It sounded like a damn teapot being left on the stove for way too long. How is he supposed to deal with this annoying eraser head with such a stupid noise hanging around? It was even worse than when the audio was freaking out on his games. God, what was it? Tamura? How he looked up just in time to see her appear right in front of him. Her fist cloaked in fire, her feet a jet of flame shooting out from her now bare feet. Time seemed to slow as he watched this woman glare at him. Her eyes were naught but burning coals of fury. Only one thought came to his mind as he watched the flame from her foot grow in intensity. Why the fuck was it so hot? He understood what that whistling was now. It was her jets. Hot air rushed over him, making his eyes water, and he had prepared for his game over. But the Namu had its orders. Keep him safe. Without thinking, the Namu caught the girl's knee and held on, its black skin sizzling at just touching the woman. X. Hold her up, the jerkwad of a boss shouted, moving towards her. Was he a dumbass? Well, he was dumb enough to attack a school for heroes, so yes, he was. Most stopped struggling as the large bird-brained. Honestly, she couldn't really call it a person at this point. It almost felt like it was just some kind of a robot with how it listened to orders, held onto her with both arms. Honestly, she hadn't meant to be grabbed by the guy, but he was a lot faster than he looked. But being this close to her while she was in flame mode was probably hurting the guy a lot. Its thick skin was already sizzling just from holding on to her. Hey, boss! One of the mooks ran up to their leader and gestured towards her. That one is pretty hot. Why don't we save her? And the boss didn't so much as blink, just placed his hand in the mook's face. Within seconds, the man's body began to turn to dust. He was dead before his body hit the floor. Was this the part where he started to monologue? Where's All Might? The boss, Tamura or something, asked her, his beady red eyes glaring at her as sweat began to pool around his cracked, dry neck. Heat was really bad for dry skin. If you don't want to end up as a pile of dust, you'll tell me. He's just running late. Mo shrugged. It was okay to lie to a villain, wasn't it? But don't worry, I'll make sure he'll be here when I kick your ass. You're annoying. He started to extend his hand towards her. Seriously, was he really this stupid? She was currently boiling the big guy that was holding her. I like to make annoying things disappear into dust. While someone was grumpy, Mo took in a deep breath, wincing as the air brushed her bruised rib. She gathered her heat, keeping it just inside of her, ready to burst out and enter Inferno mode. Seconds passed, and she watched as the gray hand closed in on her. Tamura growled, tearing his hand away from her and shaking it. So fucking hot. Oh, so sorry, I guess I'm too hot for you. Want me to blow on it for you? She gave him a fake pout. Tamura glared at her and made a dumbass mistake. He lunged for her face. Really touching her anywhere would be a bad idea. She unleashed all of her heat, rapidly expanding air, knocking back both the big guy and Tamura, the latter of which screaming and touching his hand in shock. You cheated. I touched you, but you're not turning to dust. He scrambled back from her, panic overcoming his face as one of those severed hands fell from his face. I touched you with burnt, dead flesh. Mo laughed. It felt so good to go all out for once. You see, back then, I was so hot that anything that came in contact with me would burn. But now that I'm going all out, you're lucky you're not centers right now. As much as she was talking a big game, her hair was already orange and nearing the red. She needed to hurry this up before she ran out of fuel. Inferno mode was her trump card, but it consumed more than 10 times as much as flame mode did. Then it hurt her allies, so she needed to be careful with using it. Let's make it so you'll never. The big guy charged at her, his flesh burning and sizzling with each step it took towards her, but it was regenerating. But each step it took was slower, sluggish, and way too uncoordinated. The creature probably had some form of heat or fire resistance, but that didn't matter when his insides were likely boiling. The creature stood in front of her, its large muscular body wavering from the telltale signs of a heat stroke. She felt sorry for it. She really did. With an uppercut powered by flames, she cracked the creature in the jaw and sent it tumbling backwards. Right then, since you like to use your quirk to kill people, let's make it so you can't use it ever again. She took a step forward, her foot sticking to the concrete for a moment as it started to melt. Tamura scrambled back, his eyes wide in fear. His left hand was charred. Even with healing like recovery girls, the burn was going to be impossible to heal. Even if he did get his hand back, his quirk was gone from that hand. She gathered some flame in her hand and pulled back, fully intent on blasting his hand off. Right when she launched the blast, a portal appeared in front of Tamura and another one just to the side of it. Her own blast hit her right in the face. Tamura, the black cloud guy shouted. We should leave. It's too dangerous here with her. Then get us out of here. Mo blinked. The heat from her own blast had no effect on her, but the flash of light from her own fire blinded her for just a moment. She saw a portal appear below Tamura and swore. She didn't have time to aim. She just wanted to neutralize his quirk. Her hair was red now. She was nearly out of fuel. Gathering the last one, the portal guy reacted on reflex, trying to deflect her attack back at her. But the screams of Tamura distracted him. She had burned his right arm clean off in a matter of seconds. You cheating bitch. Dismemberment wasn't the most heroic way of dealing with someone. It was heavily frowned upon, but it wasn't like she killed the guy. With the last of her heat spent, she entered burnout, and everything felt cold. Way too cold. Mo, what happened to her? Itsuka asked, running beside Izuku as he moved to catch Mo before she fell. Mo's skin was pale, almost bluish in color, and her normally vibrant flaming hair was gone, replaced with a smooth bald head. Just touching her was painfully cold. She's entered burnout, Izuku shouted, looking around for anyone that could warm her up. Her quirk lets her store fire and heat, but when she looked so helpless, so cold. Izuku looked around. Kaken still hadn't gotten back from wherever they sent him, but even his explosion hummed the heck. I need you to use your fire on her. Izuku helped Shoto not a small. Okay, was that it? That wasn't anywhere near enough. You need to go all out on her. She absorbs fire, Shoto, so she'll be okay. You can't burn her. Shoto looked at him for a moment. But I don't like using that side of my. Look, Izuku grabbed him and pointed at Mo. She's suffering and you can end that suffering, but you're not. It doesn't matter why you don't like using that side of your quirk. You want to be a hero, right? So use all of Instead of spreading out like a wave around it, condensed in on her, none of the flame go to waste as life began to return to Mo. Her hair sparked to life once again, taking on a red hue. A minute of constant fire passed, and Mo finally stood up, her hair now an orangish color. All right, Shoto, you're going to be my second sidekick after Izuku. Well, at least she was still the same. Chapter 11. Come over. I'm bored. No one is home. There was so much to unpack in the text message that Izuku had a hard time thinking about anything beyond what it could possibly mean. Sure, baseline, it was pretty simple. Mo wasn't supposed to be walking around for a few weeks because of her injuries, and she was bored, so she wanted him to come keep her company, and no one else was home. Technically, he shouldn't have anything to worry about, but there was a lot to unpack there. A lot. Why him? Why was she calling him over? Were all her other friends busy? Was he the first one she texted? Why was her family not home? Why was that important? What were they going to do? What should he say? What should he wear? Should he text her? Should he keep texting her on his way over? How loud should he knock? Should he use the doorbell? Should he text her to let her? Deku. Mo tossed open the front door and smiled at him ear to ear. Her hair was back to its normal greenish-yellow tone and was down for once, falling free past her shoulders. She balanced on one bare foot, her long legs and thick thighs entirely exposed to him as her light green shorts could barely be called that. Her right foot, clad in a white cast, dangled off the ground behind her. She balanced, placing one hand on the wall. I'm so happy you're here. Yarp! He looked at her white and blue shirt. The words Mega Milk being strained around her large, bountiful breasts made him twitch, especially because Mo wasn't wearing a bra right now. He had known Mo for a while, and he had stared at her enough to know how her clothed breasts looked when she was wearing what kind of bra. The shape, the sway, the way they distorted the shirt, she was braless. What the fuck did that mean? Yeah, I still haven't thanked you for getting Shoto to warm me up back then. Besides, don't you think it's time we had some quality one-on-one time? She hopped on her good foot and turned around. Come on, let's watch a movie and like chat or something. Shit, I'm so not used to being stuck inside like this. I'm getting all kinds of antsy. He followed after her, making sure to take his shoes off and close the door behind him, partially captivated by watching Mo maneuver with one foot. She was still as athletic and fast as always, and she seemed to be incredibly cheerful. So why are you alone? Ah, well, it's our parents' anniversary, so they're out on a second honeymoon, and Katsuki got annoyed that I kept asking him to do stuff, so he decided to go camping. He went with the red-haired boy, Ijiro, right, the guy with the hardening quirk. Mo snapped her fingers and flopped down onto the large couch that sat in the living room. The table had several snacks on it already, and Mo's phone was resting on the ground beside a bottle of tea. A pile of pillows and blankets served as a pseudo-nest for Mo, and one of those weird stand-alone cushions was set up as a throne for Mo's foot. All in all, she looked incredibly comfy and sexy. She let out a long stretch, her back arching, exposing a bit of her fit, toned stomach and slender waist. There were times when he forgot just how curvy Mo actually was, and this was serving as a clear reminder that she likely shaped his taste in women. His taste being Mo, even before puberty slapped her with a full-figured body, he had always had a crush on her. She looked at him, a feral smile on her face. Deku, come on, you gonna stare at me all day or are you going to sit? He sat on the opposite side of the couch from her. What was she doing? What was he doing? What were they doing? What should he be doing? He knew Mo at least kind of liked him back. Well, at least he thought so, and he knew that she knew that he liked her. So that made them what exactly? Let's see here. Mo grabbed the remote and flipped through the streaming selection. Let's start a new series, one that we can only watch when we're together. Oh, I know. Have you watched this one? I heard it's good. He really hadn't watched TV in a long time, mostly listening to music when he was studying, but he looked at what Mo was talking about and nodded. It looked good. Sure, but you don't have to. Izuku, she said. That defeats the purpose. This is now our show. We only watch it together. So that way, if it's super good and we both get addicted to it, we have to hang out to watch it. That kind of thing. Oh, so it sounded like a good excuse to hang out with Mo more. Alone, just the two of them, watching a show. A show that he was probably going to pretend to be interested in if it meant he could spend time with her like this. That was. That was good. Okay, I understand. I hope it's good then. She gave a soft hum and smiled at him, her orange eyes flickering for a moment as she snuggled back in her nest and dropped the remote to the side. Right then, let's sit back and relax. He did the opposite. He sat forward, stressing about what the hell was happening. He wanted to talk to Mo about their feelings. He wanted to ask her so many things. Like, was she really going to kiss him if he won the sports festival? What happened after that? Could he ask her out? What would happen if he asked her out? Hey, Deku. Mo spoke softly as the end credits of the first episode began. He had been partially entranced. She shifted. Come here. How he already was here, though, so. She patted on the seat beside her, right next to her. Come here. So close. He scooted like this, a bit closer. He scooted closer until his hip was touching hers. He felt his heart pounding in his chest. Perfect. Mo leaned onto his chest. Her flaming hair was warm to the touch and felt smooth like he was running his hand through a dry oil. Mo snuggled in place, wrapping her arms around his waist and taking in a long, soft breath. Absolutely perfect. Izuku asked, trying not to. She said nothing. She continued to say nothing, just staring up at the show and holding onto him. Slowly, Izuku moved his hand down to her waist, allowing himself to get comfortable and not freak out by what was happening. Mo was cuddling him and he was going to enjoy this while it lasted. His fingers brushed against the bare skin of her stomach. It was soft, warm, and sent a shiver down his spine with just the slightest touch. Really, nothing could ruin this moment, save for his mounting hoariness that Mo was thankfully ignoring. How could his body not react like this when she was so close? After what felt like forever, Mo finally spoke again. Hey, Deku, you know I like you too, right? I kind of hoped you did. He answered quickly, his mouth moving faster than his brain or his panic could keep up. Was this how they were going to confess? I mean, you kept teasing me, but you only teased me, so I kind of hoped. It was another minute before Mo spoke up again, her hand moving to grab his. You know, there's actually not that much of an age difference between us. I'm 17 now, and you're going to turn 16 in just over a month. So I'm only like a year and a half older than you. Yeah, I know. Izuku swallowed, feeling his fingers get entwined with Mo's, her slow, steady breathing making him relax. So why do you think I've been waiting? She glanced up at him for a moment. The fire was gone in her eyes, replaced by something calmer, just pure honesty radiating from her. Her soft lips parted slightly, her chest pressed into his in her grip, and his hand tightened ever so slightly. She was like a snake ready to strike, then she relaxed, resuming her previous position, though the feelings remained. Why do you think I haven't pounced on you already? Why do you think I set goals for you, using your feelings for me to push you forward? Because you care. He half asked, half answered. I mean, you're always trying to push me forward. You've always encouraged me. You were the first person that told me I could become a hero. You've always been so amazing. I thought you just wanted to see me succeed. She let out a soft, tender laugh and moved off of his chest. The fire was back in her eyes, and she let go of his hand, instead leaning over him, her hands pressed into the couch behind him, pinning him in place. I'm not so selfless, Izuku. A lot of what I did was selfish. I want you to have big muscles. I wanted you to become a hero, in part because, yes, that was what you wanted, but even then it was a selfish desire. I want to know what kind of a man you'll become, Deku. She twisted her head to the side, eyes locked on his, her breath burning with desire. So even knowing that I've been manipulating you into becoming what I want, do you still like me? He swallowed. His hand was on her hip, thumb at the edge of her shorts and her waist. I've liked you for a long time, Mo, and I don't think you believing in me is the same as manipulating me. I want to be a hero, too. I want to date you as a hero, and I will. Mo's eyes closed slightly, not a squint, not a glare, but with an intense burning passion built into them. Her chest pressed against his, and she leaned forward. Her fingers moved through his hair, touching places that no one had touched in a long time, pulling him in and preparing him for what was to come. A kiss? His first real kiss. A kiss with Mo. He held her hips, hands sliding up and down her waist as that simple kiss turned from a first kiss to a clumsy make-out session. His inexperience was showing, but he wasn't going to hold back anything. This was what he had dreamed of for so long. Every time his and Mo's lips touched, he felt his entire body jolt to life, and demanding more of her touch, more of her everything. And she demanded it right back at him. She parted, leaning back and smiling at him before placing her head on his chest. Consider this an investment then. I trust you. You're going to become a hero. You're going to become taller. You're going to be the most amazing boyfriend ever. And I'll do my part to make sure all of that happens. Awesome, just you wait, Mo. I'll become the best hero ever. I know you will. She looked up at him and smiled, one hand on his cheek as she pulled him down into another simple kiss. Then her smile turned devious. She moved away, sitting up and grabbed at her shirt, then tossed it to the ground without a thought, exposing her large, full breasts with pretty pink nipples that swayed and jiggled as she settled back down into her comfortable spot. They were simply amazing, easily more than a handful and just so full that even braless they touched and created an ounce of cleavage. There was even a lone mole buried on the inside of her cleavage that just added to her immense sex appeal. Weichai brain stopped working as he looked at her topless form. Really, all that separated her from being fully naked was two pieces of clothing that could maybe make a couple of socks. What's the matter, Izuku? She brought her elbows together, looking up at him with a smug smile on her face as she shook her tits at him. Don't you want to play with my tits? You've been staring at them since they grew. I thought that you would jump at the chance to touch them. Holy crap, this woman was going to be the death of him, and he was going to love every second of it. His hands sunk into Mo's soft breast flesh. They were warm, firm, and just so much fun to play with. Her pink nipples hardened when he tweaked them, earning him a small gasp from Mo. By the time he went home, well past curfew and any reasonable sense of time, Izuku had a case of blue balls so fierce it hurt. Maybe he should have tried for more. Still, he had a Mo as a girlfriend now. Wait, she is my girlfriend, right? Chapter 12. Suo, how's the face? Mo smiled, taking a sip of her drink while handing her little brother one. Katsuki's face had gotten hit a lot during his time at the sports festival. First, he had to go against Izuku's cute friend Itsuka, who punched him in the face hard. Then he had to fight a Jiro, who also hit him in the face hard. And then her poor little brother had to fight Izuku, who also hit him in the face hard. And while there was a whole lot that Recovery Girl's quirk could heal, a black eye, a bruised lip, and a mildly broken nose weren't really worth it. It was a shame that nothing could really fix her brother's wounded pride. He had lost to Izuku, the same Izuku that he called useless for years. This was going to be a lot rougher on him than ever being saved by Izuku. Katsuki grabbed the drink, but instead of opening it, he placed the cold beverage on his eyes and let out a long sigh, glaring at her with his one good eye. It almost looked like he was blaming her. Was he blaming her? He was blaming her. What did she do? Why are you looking at me like this is my fault? You trained Deku to beat me, didn't you? There was that wounded pride trying to come up with any reason to justify this defeat, and he totally was blaming her. Hey, she dug her finger into his scalp and twisted it back and forth, making him wince and flail just like when they were little. I offered you a chance to train with us, but you were the jackass that said you wouldn't get caught dead training with me and Deku. Hell, you even said that I was wasting my time. But no, I helped Izuku learn to use his quirk you doled, the quirk he lied about having. Katsuki growled, kicking away and scooting away from her on the couch. Mo wanted to roll her eyes. So she did. Technically, Izuku didn't lie, well, at least not until recently. Still, it was his secret now, so she wasn't going to spill it to Katsuki until Izuku was ready for all of that. You can think what you want to think, but either way, Izuku beat you fair and square. I wasn't in the match holding his hand or holding you down for him to hit you in the face. It was all on you. Katsuki just growled, now glaring at the TV. Dude, what's wrong with you? You've always been an asshole, but I thought I finally got you to swallow some of your pride by making you and Izuku work together, but here you are trying to choke yourself on him. So what gives? What's got you so fucking grumpy? Did losing matter that? Yes, Katsuki glared at her. It fucking did. I'm supposed to be the strong one. I was the one with the amazing quirk. Then that stupid fucking Deku shows up and tells you how to make your stupid quirk fucking amazing, and then he shows up with his own fucking quirk. Now I can't beat you or fucking him. So yes, I'm a bit fucking frustrated right now, Mo. Get the fuck over yourself, dude. Mo sat down on the couch painfully close to her little brother and glared at him. You have an amazing quirk. Yes, you can fly, do all kinds of crazy shit. You're crazy and fucking determined, but don't act like I didn't work hard to get where I am, and don't you dare fucking act like Deku didn't deserve to win. You're not the only one that worked their fucking ass off, so don't act like your hard work makes everybody else's hard work moot. She poked her little brother in the arm. You saw how hard I worked to get to where I am today. You've seen where I started, and you've seen my results. So what the fuck gives? Everyone. Katsuki growled, fingers crushing the drink in his hand as he continued to glare forward, a few tears in his eye. Everyone keeps getting better and fucking better. While I work, and I work, and I work, and I don't improve. Dude Mo sat back and leaned against the couch. Everyone feels that way. Deca feels that way. I feel that way. It's so easy to see everyone else improving when you don't see their struggles. Trust me when I say you're getting stronger. Day by day, you're getting better at using your quirk. Your personality is a bit shit, though. Katsuki smirked. Bitch. Bastard. She sat there, watching the muted TV with her brother for a few more minutes, waiting for him to say something. Her little brother might be an asshole, but he was her little asshole, and that meant when he acted out, she had to smack him back in line. And when he was fucked up, she had to unfuck him. That probably could have been thought better, but she stood by her point. Besides, she could understand where he was coming from. You're not the only bakugo to come in second place this year, you know. Yeah, I know. Katsuki looked at her and gave her a wry smile. Could have vaporized him if you went all out, though. Ha, maybe, but I'd rather not permanently scar my friends or other heroes. Moore gave him a playful shove. You're lucky Izuku likes her new haircut, otherwise you might have to watch yourself around her. Hey, maybe she's got guts and skills. Katsuki let out a long sigh and relaxed in his seat again. Thanks, Mo. No problem, Katsuki. No problem at all. She grabbed the remote and turned the sound back on. Oh, by the way, I'm dating Deku. Fucking finally. X. Izuku bounced the tennis ball against his racket. It was called a racket, right? He had no idea what he was doing, really, like at all. He really should just be giddy as all hell that he managed to win the sports festival. But he was way too nervous to even think about how awesome that was. He was on a date with Mo. Mo, the girl whose breasts he felt up before they had even gone on a date, and who was now his girlfriend. His real girlfriend, not a fake girlfriend. But like they were dating and stuff, and this was a date. And he was on that date with Mo, who was his girlfriend. And he had no idea what to do. Was he supposed to grab her and kiss her? Was that part of dating? Was sports a dating thing? Why were they playing tennis? He didn't know how to play tennis. Did Mo know how to play tennis? She always seemed to be into sports, but he thought that was just mostly volleyball, but they couldn't play volleyball alone, but they could do tennis. They could also make out alone. Not that he wanted to make out with her. Okay, he did. He really, really did. He could still feel those first few kisses on his lips, that numb, almost tingly sensation sending a shiver down his spine and making the rest of his body seem less important, as though all of him was relishing in that sensation. Was he going to get another kiss? Wait, he should take one. Mo liked it when he was forward right. Was that going too far? Should he just go for it? Grab her by the waist, pull her in and kiss her. That sounded like a good idea. Oi, Izuku. Mo used his name again. She had stopped calling him Deku in her own special way that made him feel happy. Instead, she was calling him Izuku in that exact same way, but it was special. She only called him that when they were alone, and that sent another shiver down his spine. He looked across the court to see Mo strutting and onto the tennis court like it was a runway, and she was several times hotter than any model. The tennis outfit she was wearing was like the ones he had seen other girls wear. Sleeveless top, folded skirt, tennis shoes, hair in a ponytail. Only on Mo, it was sexier, because of course it was. It wasn't just that Mo was sexy because she was. It was probably because her outfit was simply skimpier than it should be. Her skirt was short, ending before it really began and showing off those life-saving thighs for the entire world to see, or because they were the only ones here or him. Her sleeveless top was short, too short to be called a shirt, as it was just long enough to cover her large breasts. It didn't fold into her stomach, rather it stopped, cascading over those spectacular mounds that he could still feel in his hands. Mo's stomach was likewise exposed. That firm belly half shrouded by the shadow of her breasts reminded him of just how fit Mo was and how sexy she was. Her waist was narrow until it met her powerful childbearing hips. Oi, Decatilda, Mo called, racket resting on the ground, her wrists resting on the hilt. I can see your dicku. It's not my fault. He stood proud. He was supposed to be attracted to his girlfriend, right? You wore that on purpose. Who? She placed a hand on her chest, her fingers working to undo one of the top two buttons. Me, would I ever try to seduce you? She undid another button and then ruffled her shirt a bit to show off her sports bra. She finished it all with a wink. Oh, wait, yes, I would, Tilda. So is this how our relationship is going to go down? You teasing me every chance you get. Mo nodded, her flaming hair bouncing along, and her smile shone brighter than the sun. Oh, you know it, and yes, it's only going to get worse once you marry me. That made him stop. Marriage. Serves up, Deku. Mo jumped into the sky, a tennis ball leaving her hand, but he was blinded by how her skirt showed off her panties and how her top was loose enough to allow a peek at that bra once again. Needless to say, he didn't even flinch when the ball beamed him in the head. Come on, Deku. If you win, I'll give you a reward. Why did he feel like his entire relationship with Mo was going to be like this tennis match? Her teasing him nonstop while trying to bring out the best of him, and him trying not to get distracted by her everything. And so I'm actually going to be ending this fic soon. I know this is going to piss a lot of you off because you were hoping for some long drawn-out canon-based fic where Izuku and Mo would fight AFO together or something, and while that does sound awesome and like something you all would like to read, it's not what I want to write. This fic from the start has been about Izuku and Mo, and now I feel like I'm reaching my end with this fic. There's a reason why the updates are so far apart compared to my other works. It's hard to write, and even harder to write well. Chapter 13. Izuku had a dozen reasons to be nervous, and all of them were all centralized over his girlfriend. His literally smoking hot girlfriend that had been making his life as a sexually awkward teenager all the more sexually awkward with the sheer amount of teasing she did. His phone had a folder. That folder was called Mo. In that folder was a lot of risky pics of his girlfriend. Some of them even had clothes. One of his favorites was of her laying in bed, the covers barely covering her breasts, leaving a long curvy slice of her body from her armpit all the way to her thick thighs exposed to him. He was also fond of one where she asked him what bra he liked and all the other outfits she sent him via text. But the outfit she was wearing tonight, he only had the slightest hint of. It was a kimono, there was orange and black involved, and she was wearing sandals. It was the first weekend of summer vacation, and there just so happened to be a summer festival for both of them to enjoy. So yeah, he was meeting his girlfriend. For a date, she was going to be wearing a kimono. And then afterwards, apparently he was going to go home tonight. Not if what Mo was hinting it was right. Izuku looked around the crowd. Trying to spot Mo in the middle of the crowd should be easy, especially with how her hair glowed when she wanted to show off, and he had no doubt that's exactly what she wanted to do to him. Or at least he hoped so. Hey there, Deku. He could hear the smile and the sultry tone of her voice sending a shiver up his spine as he turned to face Mo. Instead of finding her, she found him. And he found her beyond beautiful. Her large, sharp-toothed smile blasted away any nervousness he had, and the spark in her eyes reminded him that as much as he loved her, she returned those feelings. Her greenish, flaming hair was pulled into a he couldn't call it a bun. Rather, it looked like a flame held in place by two pins in her hair. The usual long strand of hair that fell between her eyes was on full display as well, its embers outshining everything around her. Her kimono was the complete opposite of traditional. Most girls opted for floral or scenic with light, soft colors that were just subtle and vibrant. Mo looked like she walked up to a seamstress and said, "Put some flame on this bitch." The top portion of her kimono was pure white, a dangerous gambit considering how she was holding three dripping meat kebabs in each hand. A black and orange stripe outlined the folds of her kimono, and a black belt with orange flames was wrapped tight around her waist with a red string tied around it purely for show. The bottom of her kimono was fire. Red flames went nearly up to her hips and even clung to the bottom of her sleeves. In short, Mo looked absolutely gorgeous. Here she stuck her hand out and offered him a dripping meat kebab with several green vegetables stuck between the bits of meat. "These are yours." Thanks." He took them, still staring at her with wide eyes. "You look, yeah, just wow." She took a bite of her own meat kebab and spun around, showing off how her kimono hugged her figure and the back of her ensemble. "Thanks, I was hoping you'd like it. This is the kimono I'm going to wear at our wedding after all." "What? Come on, let's go explore the festival." She pulled on his arm, somehow easily taking another carnivorous bite of one of her kebabs. She had such a great big smile on her face that Izuku couldn't help but smile right back at her. "But hey, what was that about a wedding?" he asked, stumbling after her. Mo just turned to him, taking a now far more dignified pose, and smiled at him. "As if you're not dreaming about that. You're the one that brought it up." He took another bite of meat and half glared at her. I suppose I did." She shrugged and nudged his arm. "I wonder what that could mean." Before he could answer, she pulled him down a set of stalls, pulling him from one attraction to the next. The pure happiness she emitted, the closeness of her, and the way the entire crowd just faded away into the background so every moment felt like it was just him and her, was intoxicating. He really wanted to spend the entire night with her. So he felt her fingers entwined with his, Mo's eyes flashing towards his for just a few moments as she bit her lips, then looked up towards the fireworks lighting up the sky. The slight height advantage she had on him was shrinking by the day. Even with the festival going on around them, even compared to the fireworks lighting up the sky, nothing compared to that small, almost innocent smile Mo had on her face. "You want to go back to my place and fuck?" Did he say innocent? He meant a smile so lewd and lecherous that it could rob a nun. "Did you want to go back to my place and fuck?" Did he say innocent? He meant a smile so lewd and lecherous that it could rob a nun of her virginity. Still, in the face of such a question, Izuku could only think of one thing to say. "No one else is home, right?" "Nope," Mo whispered, leaning in to give him a long, not entirely decent kiss on his neck. Her breath touched his ear, and he felt his entire body fill with more teenage hormones than he ever got as a teenager. Did he just become a man? "So that means we can find out if you can make me scream." "You will make me scream, won't you?" He let go of her hand, bent down, and swept Mo off her feet, quickly pulling her into a princess carry, and ran off with her. "Whoa, I didn't mean like this." She was laughing and screaming the whole way to her home. Now that he was actually inside of Mo's room, sitting on her bed, watching her door as he waited for her to show back up into her room, all of that horny energy that had brought him here was now just stirring inside of him as a vortex of awkwardness. Seriously, what was he supposed to do? They were going to have sex. For the first time, he was going to have sex with Mo, and he was still fully dressed. Should he be fully dressed? Mo liked muscles, so maybe he should take his shirt off for something to flex. Would Mo want to undress him? He kind of wanted to undress her. Okay, he really, really wanted to undress her. Izuku bit his lip and stared at that door, focusing all he could on the signs of movements from within the house. He could hear her footsteps, as dainty as a linebacker trying to do ballet. A few breathless moments later, and she appeared in her doorway. Her outfit was exactly the same as it had been earlier. Really, it looked like everything the same. Not that that was bad, but then why did she need to get ready? "Do you know?" Her hair seemed to flare as she spoke, her breath a siren's call of pure sexuality if he ever heard one. She posed against the entranceway, one hand extending all the way up and the other moving down her kimono in a way that made sure he was paying attention to all the important bits. The best part about wearing a kimono, that you look absolutely amazing in them. That statement was both the truth and should score him some brownie points. Mo smiled sweetly at him and took a few sexy steps towards him, her bare feet gracing the carpet of her room while she pulled on that red string around her waist. She slowly pulled the string, unraveling it inch by inch while she moved her hips side to side to some music inside Mo's head. Close, but nice try." "No, the best part is Tilda." She finished pulling that red string. "How much fun they are to take off." The thick black flame belt that pinched her kimono to her slender waist came loose, and the rest of the kimono along with it. It fell off of her body like a sheet of water against a window, pooling at her feet and revealing her firm naked body to him. Those large round breasts of hers that he had spent far too much time fantasizing about and had even felt a handful of times were staring right out at him, Mo's back arched back in pride, showing them off in all their glorious splendor. Those were the breasts that could make any man a breast lover, and were likely why Izuku himself was so fond of them. But Mo's fully nude body didn't stop there. The slightest bit of muscle could be seen in her stomach, giving her slender stomach some definition, and made her wonder how she had such a narrow waist, though he supposed that it wasn't that her waist was narrow, rather that her hips, those wide, full, pale hips of hers that strained every pair of pants, shorts, skirts, and swimsuit he'd seen Mo wear, were just that wide. Not to be outdone, her thick and powerful thighs that made a perfect pillow despite being able to crush a watermelon were on full display as well. Though I'm starting to think your reaction is just as good. Mo placed one hand on her hip and looked at him with one raised eyebrow. Well, your smoking hot girlfriend is standing here completely naked. She pulled on the pins in her hair and let it down. Why the hell are you still dressed? Izuku had never taken his pants off so fast before. He rolled back, his hands on the hem, and used Mo's bed to spring himself forward while taking his pants off, and then tossed his shirt to the side in a heartbeat. He didn't remember taking that extra step towards Mo, but all he knew is that a moment later he had one hand on her chest, the other on her hip, and his lips on hers. One of Mo's hands went to his back, while the other wrapped around his rock-hard erection and began to stroke him softly. Mo's hands, much like all of her, was warm to the touch. He moaned at the sensation and into their shared kiss, feeling her entire body press up against his while they stood there trying to get closer and closer. Izuku, Mo said, softly, parting for just a moment. I bet that you'd feel good, really good, inside of me. She paused, stopping to look down at his dick and bouncing it on her hand. You're big too, but you have a nice shape. I think I'm going to like having sex with you. Have you ever done it before? He half gasped at her touch and moved to kiss the nape of her neck once more, feeling the way she shivered at his kiss. Sex, I mean. Mo gave a soft moan and shook her head. Unless you count my vibrator, you're going to be my first. Though I've watched a lot of porn. A lot of porn. Have you watched any? He nodded. Good, I think. So she moved her hand away from him and pressed her chest up against his dick being pushed down between those warm, soft thighs of hers. She kissed him again, moaning and grinding against him, and leaving him speechless when she pulled away for a gasp of air and a whisper to him. How do you want to do this? How do you want to? He asked, one hand of his squeezing her round, firm butt. You ever see porn where the guy picks the girl up and fucks her against the wall? She asked, looking towards a rather barren part of her wall. That always sounded so fucking hot to me. And the idea of you doing that. He felt something wet drip on his shaft between Mo's thighs. He didn't need to be told twice. With both hands on her ass, he pulled her up, earning another gasp from Mo, followed by the feeling, that oh so amazing feeling, of her legs locking around his waist as he moved towards that wall. Mo's weight was nothing compared to all the training he did with her, nor was it even a match for 1/10 of how turned on he was right now. He had never really thought about sexual positions before, but now, hearing what made Mo wet, he couldn't help but agree with what she said. Mo's arms were around his neck, holding his head to hers as her back pressed against the wall. Her kiss was even hotter than before, and he could feel just how turned on she was by this. She moved one hand down between them, somehow finding his dick and aligning it just so. Entering Mo, the first real act of sex was something he had never felt before. She was tight, squeezing him hard as her hips moved just the slightest bit before she stopped and laughed. I was right, she whispered, head against his shoulder. You do feel good. Good, Izuku. She slowly ground her hips against his, the little movement sending sparks up her spine, making her moan lowly. Now, hurry up and fuck me so hard that I'll need to think of an excuse as to why I can't walk tomorrow, she ordered. He obeyed, thrusting in ever so slightly. That felt good. That felt really, really good. Like that. Mo gave a low moan, her sharp nails digging into his back as she moved to kiss him, smashing her lips against his. She pulled him as close as possible, breathing in his scent as they kissed heavily. She pulled away for a second, catching her breath, and stared into Izuku's bright green eyes. Deeper and much harder, Izuku. She mooled as she reached up the back of his neck and pulled him towards her for another addicting kiss. I want everything, she whispered as she gently bit his lip. Whatever hormones that had been racing through Izuku's veins nearly doubled right then just for Mo's sultry tone and choice of words. Immediately, he pressed into her harder, forcing her flat against the wall, and quickly picked up the pace. His thrust grew long and deeper than Mo would have expected from him. Not that she was complaining, her mind currently undergoing a full wipe from the pleasure. X. Izuku kept up the pressure, his trained and toned muscles roaring as his hormones fueled his rapid movements. He paid them no mind, focusing on the stunning look on Mo's face as he fucked her senseless, elation flooding him as her eyes rolled back and her body shook with pleasure. He gasped deeply when Mo clamped down even harder on him, her own toned body ringing him for everything he could give her. And Mo, Izuku gasped out as he felt his boiling need rapidly grow. I'm gonna. Her eyes snapped back up to his, and Izuku could have sworn he saw fiery hearts in them as she focused on him. Do it? Give me everything, Tilda. She moaned out, her breath short, her heavy chest rising and falling rapidly. Izuku's body wasn't holding back and answered her plea with gusto. His legs tensed, and he felt the lightning shoot through him, his eyes slamming shut, the bright and unrestrained look of love in Mo's eyes burned into his memory. He slammed her down into his lap one last time. X. Mo's core was ablaze with energy as Izuku slammed home, reaching her deepest corners, stretching her entirely. A low moan from his lips and his powerful tensing inside of her, followed by white-hot liquid making her wonderfully full, sent her over the edge again. Izuku! She managed to squeal out as she pulled him as close as she could, her core rocked by another explosive orgasm, her nails digging into his back as she twitched from the white-hot lightning running rampant in her system. She kissed him like her life depended on it and felt her body finally relax from the high that Izuku had brought her to. Her stomach felt like it was on fire with his white-hot sperm still inside of her. He slowly let her down, her feet touching the ground for what felt like the first time in forever. Every part of her body was tingly and warm, and she just wanted to kiss him. I love you, she muttered in between wet, sloppy, gasping kisses. She kept touching his face, those freckles, his own smile. I love you so much. Yeah, Izuku nodded. His large, rough hands felt so good as he rubbed her back gently. I love you too. Good. She placed her weight against him and nodded towards her bed. Let's cuddle in there and watch something for a bit, yeah. And then round two. Ooh, how are we going to explain the dent in your wall? Ooh, fuck it. I'll just tell my mom you fucked me good. What? Why do you think it's so easy for me to get them out of the house? Chapter 14. Have I ever told you how hot it is that you're taller than me? Mo leaned against Izuku, making ever so certain to press her chest against his back while she squeezed him from behind. That moment only lasted a moment before she jumped up and wrapped herself around his neck, forcing him to grab her legs and give her a piggyback ride. She kissed his cheek, feeling him smile more under her touch. Izuku laughed and stomped around their brand new, officially moved into house. It was a place they selected together months after their wedding, though really she'd been eyeing this place for a while now. Located near Mount Takao, close enough to be in the city that they could be there in a few minutes, especially if she took the husband express in the morning, but far enough out that they weren't quite so crowded. They had a garden that she was probably never going to actually tend, mostly because, well, fire. Besides, she wasn't the garden kind of old lady. She was the wine before noon kind of old lady. It's a good thing Izuku was probably going to be a great father because if and when they ever had kids, she was probably going to fuck them up. She would not be surprised if her brats ended up worse than her and Katsuki did, though technically both of them did all right. She married Izuku and Katsuki was more or less kept in check by a significant other, though her deal was a lot better. Izuku grabbed her and flipped her around so that he could give her a very warm and loving kiss. You told me that every day since you had to get on your tippy toes to kiss me. I know. She swooned and allowed Izuku to catch her, finding that out made my day. Totally worth putting up with dating a shrimp for so long. I can drop you, you know? Yeah, but you won't. What makes you so sure of that? Because you love me. Izuku rolled his eyes and stood her back up. Izuku had been whipped since he had first laid eyes on her. For years she knew how to press his buttons and get him to do just about anything she wanted. Like marry her. You're so easy. Then her back hit against the wall, a dull thud echoing throughout the hallway as Izuku's thick muscular arms slammed above her. Her heart went to a dead stop, then picked up at full and panic rate as suddenly she was a schoolgirl again, with this ultra-manly version of her crush pinning her against the wall. To make things worse, Izuku's eyes were practically burning with lust, and the wry smile on his face as he cupped her chin made her whimper. As much as she knew all of Izuku's buttons, he knew all of hers. Only he was very careful when to use them. So his wall slammed at her completely and utterly helpless. Her legs were jello, her head was spinning, and she was so turned on for whatever Izuku wanted to do to her. Was he going to kiss her? Were they going to have sex against the wall? On the countertop? On the couch? On the table? Would they break furniture? She closed her eyes and went to lean up for the kiss that was coming. She could all but feel his hands pulling at her shirt, moving up. Then they would wait. Instead, Izuku was just casually walking away from her after getting, "You jerk, get back here and get me off." X. Well, they already needed a new bed frame. Something a bit strong and more fireproof. Maybe I should add an extra fire extinguisher to the list. Izuku hummed and took a sip of his coffee. It was bitter, very bitter. How did people drink this? Why was he drinking this? He wasn't a coffee drinker. The only reason he really liked it was because Mo drank it, and he got reminded of her kisses whenever he tasted coffee because of it. Not that her kisses were in short supply. Some days it felt like he kissed more than he breathed. They've been in their honeymoon phase for so long that he wasn't sure if they'd ever get out of it. Maybe there would be some kind of change once they had a kid or something. A kid, huh? Now there was a thought. Mo had insisted on getting this house because it was the perfect place for raising a family. But that dream was a few years out. They were probably going to wait until the birth control thingy that Mo got finally ran its course. That would give them both more time to grow up and get ready for the whole getting ready for being parents thing, and a few more years to secure their position on the leaderboards wouldn't hurt either. Izuku looked up from their dining room table and saw Mo shuffling towards the table, a cup of coffee clutched in both hands. No matter how often it happened, he always loved seeing her like this. In the morning, naked, save for one of his shirts, leaving her long legs exposed and the slightest movement showing off something special. It always made him feel so proud when he saw her like that, which was a bit silly because it happened frequently. Mo stared at the metallic seat and ruffled her nose up in disgust before moving over and sitting down on his lap. "Good morning." Izuku laughed and pulled her into a one-armed hug. "Did you sleep well?" "Sleep." Mo snorted and took a drink of her coffee. "How, I don't think that qualifies as sleep. Still, you'd think that I would stop being so sore eventually. Aren't you the one that grabbed onto the headboard and kept screaming? SHHH, let's not talk about that next time. Next time, let's do it gently, just a nice, slow, easy grind, something that will leave me feel like my legs are jello. But don't you like the jello legs? Not the point."
Oh, fuck. Where are you? Well, I know the story there is. Hey, what the fuck is happening here? I don't.
The Wolf and the Rabbit.
So what's still going on? Thank God. This is the one I want to watch.
The Wolf and the Rabbit. The Wolf and the Rabbit. And
Okay, yes. Okay, we're gonna do this next time. So